Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about secret invasion and the Imperial Brain-Snatchers, AI plagiarism software, which made the title, unfortunately, of this show, and actual coups while everyone continues to become suddenly experts on Russia and whether or not the country is going to have a civil war, coup, new federation, etc. So obviously there's a lot going on there, and some of this is going to be related to current events that just happen to kind of coincide. I think with the release of this show, Secret Invasion. If you don't know, is a show that was just put out by Disney on Disney Plus. It stars Samuel L. Jackson, seen in that image there, and continues the Marvel Cinematic Universe with I forget, he's the commander or the organizer. I don't know what his exact title is at the Avengers, but continues with Nick Fury coming back from apparently being warped, changed, distorted during the snap. The alternate title for this was Secret Invasion, Imperial Body Snatchers, and or Imperial Mind Snatchers, which of course is a reference to the Body Snatchers. Which, if you don't know what the Body Snatchers is, Body Snatchers is a show that was created. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a 1956 American science fiction horror film produced by. This is not really important, but it was a show that was similar to what Secret Invasion is about, which let's come back to that for a second. So Secret Invasion is a comic book crossover written in 2008. I actually thought this was, it feels so Cold War-ish. It's so very much like an American spy, American communist infiltration of the capitalist United States and its allies, sort of feeling to it. With there could be a red in your neighborhood. Keep it under keep a close eye on your socialist and communist sympathizers in your workplaces, in your communities, in your schools, in your universities. Right? It has a very Cold War feeling to it. But Secret Invasion is a comic book crossover that actually was written in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, or if Wikipedia is not. The story involves a subversive long-term invasion of Earth by Skrulls, a group of alien shapeshifters. Skrulls here, these people. Alien shapeshifters who have secretly replaced many superheroes in the Marvel universe with imposters over a period of years. Prior to overt invasion, Marvel's promotional tagline was, "Who do you trust?" So the right, so the Cold War McCarthy era slogans, so I can remember, they had better red than dead, better dead than red. Our job as Americans and Republicans is to dislodge the traitors from every place where they've been sent. This McCarthy was one of the leaders in the U.S. war on communism and socialism, the Cold War era, right, in the 20th century. And so he led it's not really about him. It's just he's one of the leaders of the U.S. Campaign to root out the traitors of America. We are engaged in a final all-out battle between communistic atheism and Christianity. I mean, he also brings that into it. It's also important because there's a lot of Christian organizers in the 30s, in particular, that were organizing left space, socialist and communist and union organizations through churches, and so it's kind of like a push to make all things communist synonymous with atheism and anti-Christianity. I mean, of course, there's a longer, deeper history with the European and Euro settlers and Christianity, but certainly that was a big part of it. And so this time the Red Scare was, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Are you sympathetic to our foes? Obviously, number one would be Russia in that time. Right now, it's the United States' number one enemy is, of course, China, but they are very still anti Russia. But in that time, the Red Scare, right, the Red Scare time was a time of the the fear of communism in the United States and the attempt to get rid of anything socialist, anything communist. Let's just look at some more of these. So like Joseph McCarthy was the senator who claimed that there was 205 known communists working for the U.S. Department of State. Truman dismissed him as a ballyhoo artist. McCarthy succeeded when he made a special effort to defeat Maryland Senator Millard Tendings. Anyways, this is more about this era. Why am I bringing that up? Because that informs the Body Snatchers, right? Which was a movie about, I'll close this. That was about the extraterrestrial invasion that begins in the fictional California town of Santa Mira. Alien plant spores have fallen from space and grown into large seed pods, each one capable of producing a visually identical copy of a human. As each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical traits, memories, and personalities of each sleeping person placed near it until only the replacement is left. These duplicates, however, are devoid of all human emotion. Little by little, a local doctor uncovers this quiet invasion and attempts to stop it. So when people talk about the pod people, because a lot of times you hear that kind of used in like sci-fi nerd circles, which obviously I'm around a lot. Pod people is a term that arose in the 20th century and refers to emotionless duplicates. So they're basically like somebody who is a body snatcher is somebody who looks and sounds and acts, for the most part, like your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your boss or your teacher or your coworker, right? But they're not them. It's an imposter that's pretending to be them, to be that your own loved one, right? Who has been, like, over the course of several days, digested and replaced cell by cell by this alien space plant. They're like a Alpha Centauri visitor flora. They're like a bit like the Last of Us fungal infection, but more insidious, right? In the sense that, like, they're a non-animal, like, life form that takes over, but you can't even tell that they've taken over the world, or they're slowly taking over the world by taking each person one at a time. They have this huge, it kind of looks like Little Shop of Horrors plant that eats. Let me see if I can get a picture of that. Body Snatchers plant. There's a reference in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as well, but there's like this plant that kind of eats the body. Oh, it's kind of creepy, actually. Maybe I won't show it too much. But basically, like, there's a plant that wraps its like leaves and almost like a Venus flytrap around the body, and then it creates another identical copy, right, by transmitting like DNA and taking like 3D Xeroxing the first human body, and then makes another complete identical copy, but with the plant cells and with the plant mind. But it has the mind and it has the body, right, of the original human, right? So there is a body snatcher plant mind in control of the memories and history of the human, right? And the only way you can tell the difference, it actually is Donald Sutherland, Kiefer Sutherland's father, was the star of the remake in the 70s, 80s. And so the only way you can tell that it's a body snatcher's body and not not your partner or your loved one or whoever it is at a certain point, like if they get fought out, or if you know who they are, they point at you and they make this screeching, super high pitched, inhuman screeching sound. And so that's it's basically the only way to figure this out. Or maybe there might be like, I think sometimes they go back and they do a few strange and unusual things, and also they obviously kidnap people and help the body snatchers. But other than that, it's almost impossible to tell them apart. So anyways, coming back to what does it have to do? So that's why I talked about, secret invasion. Secret, also, what's up, Big Teal? Secret invasion of the body snatchers, right? It was the other topic, because it's very much like that. In fact, in Secret Invasion, since I've already dovetailed into the body snatchers territory, there's a scene, right, where there are pods, right? I don't know if you've seen it. I don't think this is spoiling it too much. There's a scene in Secret Invasion where you see an area where the Skrull. I mean, I think it's clear, right, that the Skrulls are, from other movies, you already know Skrulls can imitate other bodies, right? I believe there's an Asgardian that can also do that. I think I thought it was a Skrull who imitates Megan Thee Stallion in She-Hulk, the She-Hulk show, but I think it's actually Skrull. But basically they're like Shang Tsung. They're doppelgangers. They can change their body shape, like Mystique, into any other shape and impersonate people, right? And so the Skrulls have kind of like the body snatchers, but instead of plants, they have this metal cage with this some kind of I don't know. I'm not deep enough into the show to know what exactly that is, but they have some kind of power field that's like controlling and freezing the people in place. And these people that are the humans that have been snatched, right? Like this character here, get taken, and then one of the Skrulls, right, who is working against the humans, right? The Skrulls who I think in Secret Invasion, it's the Skrulls have been promised a new home planet, right, as their old planet is no more, by Nick Fury, right, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And now some of the Skrulls are unhappy with having to keep waiting for this, and they don't think the humans will make good on their promise. They don't think the Avengers will make good on their promise. So the Skrulls decide maybe we'll just take Earth, right? Or they'll take this area in it happens to be in Russia, but anyways, they're gonna take this region and possibly take. I mean, it's unclear like how much exactly they're going to take of Earth, but they're going to live on Earth now, right? And so the Skrulls snatch the bodies, and then one of the Skrulls who is assigned, right, under this character Gravik, who is a leader of a resistance. What is Gravik's character? Let me get his exact thing. Gravik in Secret Invasion. He is a charismatic leader who believes that the Skrulls need to be free. They need a new homeworld, and he's leading this charge to fight the humans to take part or all of the Earth, basically, right? So Gravik is the leader of the radical Skrull faction. He's also played by a black person. So there's a lot of things that are happening here. A lot of things that are happening here that are, we're going to get to what I think about this, but let's just get through what is on the screen. Gravik is the leader of the radical Skrull faction who had led a covert invasion of Earth to seize its resources. Okay, so that would... Oh, okay. Covert invasion. He's already on Earth. He didn't like arrive, but it's a secret invasion. It's not like the Skrull have a huge spaceship and they start shooting at Earth like Independence Day, right? They're already on Earth and now they're invading Earth. So, I mean, this is kind of like, I don't know, this is kind of weird though, right? Because kind of like, this is like saying that displaced refugees, right, that are sinking and dying, 700 of them, right, African and Asian non-Europeans that sank and died on that ship that everybody's talking about, the billionaires on the Titanic, the Titan boat. And then there were like 700, right? 700 refugees on the ship that also died, but because because they were not, 700 men, women, and children drowned, but because they were not white people, basically, because they were, they were Eastern, they were not white people, they were from a place that did not count as humans, which is what the European Union considers humans. You have to be basically Euro-Christian peoples. These people all died at the same time, 700 of them, and They literally the EU and Greece, the EU and the United States that supports them by extension, basically killed them. They watched them all die. They gave no resources to save them, as they're all dead at the bottom of the sea now. Meanwhile, millions and millions of dollars and multiple navies, U.S. and Canada, went to save 5 ultra rich people, basically, multiple billionaires, 2 billionaires, and are not just spent the whole day, this whole week, taking the whole Western world into this needless news cycle, kind of self-interested, deceitful, because they already knew that the people were dead. The submarine, the U.S. Navy had detected a signal that implied an explosion, which was the end of, that would be the death of all the people on the ship. But they suggested, right, for multiple days, that with the oxygen counters for 48 hours that these people could be saved. Basically, what was the point of that? To distract people from other news, and also to distract people from the fact that 700 people died. So one thing I'm already going to take issue with something in this, which is that if this, I mean, I don't have all the history on the Skrull, but the Skrull is led by a non-white person. The Skrull are refugees because they don't have a planet anymore, right? It's kind of like the people who are getting on boats, right, that are dying off the coast of Europe, with the basically killed by Europe. Europe has killed tens of thousands or more of these refugees, right? And they are dying because their own countries are being destroyed by U.S., Western, white, colonial capitalist countries like the United States and the European Union and Canada. That's why they're leaving their countries, is because their countries are left underdeveloped, war zones, etc., right? And if those refugees who are displaced, not unlike the Skrull, are said to, and they are described, right? They are described by, especially the more right wing. I say more right wing because all right wing, so basically all right wing when it comes to the West, but the more extreme right wing parties describe refugees, right, as invaders, right? Like not even Donald Trump, right? There's a Mexican invasion. There's a Muslim invasion. We have to ban any movements of people from all these 7 countries, right? The refugees, Africans, and these Muslims are invading Germany, invading France. They're all coming in. These refugees, they're outsiders coming into our Europe, and they're not good people. They're bad people. They're criminals. They're not Europeans, and that's all bad, right? And so we have to really worry about this secret invasion of African and Asian and Muslim people in our Europe, and they could be anywhere, and the Russians are helping them. The Russians are assisting these people, and then at the same time we want to go to Africa and say you should work with us, right? Because we're so awesome and good. But the thing is, so anyway, that's a side comment. It's too the parallels are too there for me to not comment. But let's come back to the secret invasion. So Gravik is the Radical Skull faction, leader of the Radical Skrull faction. He's also a black person, so I mean, it's an interesting choice, which is like, interesting choice. Obviously the Skrull are green. They're not, he's the person that Gravik is impersonating right now is a not white person, right? But the people of the Skrull planet are, they're inhuman, like greenish skinned, kind of reptilian looking people. Not to be confused with the Illuminati reptilian overlords, which is certain right wing conspiracy theorists, dead horse that they keep flogging. Anyways, the bombing of the okay, I'm not gonna go through this whole thing because I don't want to give the whole plot away. But basically, in Secret Invasion, there are people who are having their minds taken, their bodies taken. They've been captured and put basically in stasis, and then the Skrulls are impersonating those people, and they're impersonating people like elected politicians. They're impersonating business people. They're impersonating agents. They're impersonating Shield agents. They're impersonating Avenger related. And just people in positions of power. They are doing everything they can to try to take over the Earth, basically, or at least that's ostensibly what they are doing in this. At least at the start of the show, I haven't watched the whole show. Only one episode is out. It's supposed to be 6 episodes. Anyways, so and so that there's a real, when I talk about the body snatchers, there's a real parallel there because of the way that the bodies are captured and then replicated by. Now, of course, the original human dies in the body snatchers to make the plant replicant, the plant replica, which is not, I think it's not the case in the Skrull, but the whole concept and the what it is about is very similar, right? The thrust of it is very similar to body snatchers, and it's also invasion, right? Like invasion, because the body snatchers is a secret invasion as well, right? It's because you have War of the Worlds, which is a not secret invasion, right? War of the Worlds is another science fiction movie, which is the aliens come to Earth. It's the same era, right? The original was from the same mid 20th century. The aliens come to Earth with ships and tripodal war mechs and attack and overtly invade and take over the world, right? And so Body Snatchers was a secret invasion because they're invading, but nobody even realizes they're being invaded, right? Till it's too late. And so it's very Cold War. Anyway, so back to what else were we talking about? So and in the show you have Samuel L. Jackson, right? Samuel L. Jackson is playing. Let me just get up here. See here. Yeah. So Samuel L. Jackson is playing Nick Fury again, right? Kingsley Ben-Adir is playing Gravik. I think I've seen that guy in something else. But Talos is played by Ben Mendelsohn. He's another Skrull. Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen herself, is playing Gia, who is another Skrull character. And so basically in Secret Invasion, Samuel L. Jackson, it starts off anyway with him coming back from, he comes back to Earth. He's been in space. I have not watched every single Marvel movie, to be honest. Like it's been getting a bit boring they kind of do the same thing a lot of the time, and I just don't have time to watch every single one of them. So I'm missing some of the plot in between all of this. But the Skrulls have been in deep space for years before returning. Sorry, the Skrulls have been working with Nick Fury, and Nick Fury has been in space doing this, and then he returns to Earth. Right, Fury has been up so long because he is worn out and uncertain of his place in the world after the deaths of his colleagues in Avengers Endgame. Jackson said the series would delve deeper into Fury's past and future and allow him to explore something other than the badassery of who Nick Fury is, and to find out who he is and delve into how much of a toll his job actually takes on his personal life. So it's kind of a Nick Fury centered show. It's like it's more introspective, reflective on Nick Fury, the character himself. He continues that Secret Invasion allowed him to figure out some stuff and work out some new things with Fury, which Jackson did not have the opportunity to do in other appearances. In Moscow. And so the thing, I brought up Russia because it is important. Russia is important to this show. It's central to the show because it opens in Russia, in Moscow, right? That's not the only reason. I mean, there's the Body Snatchers is about the Cold War, which is about what? The Soviet Union. It's about Russia. It centered Russia, obviously Russia and China and the non-capitalist world, but the communist bloc alliance. But you can't really talk about anything Cold War without talking about Russia. You can't talk about really U.S. And the West and its empire and its capitalism without bringing up the other side of the bipolar world of the mid 20th century, and in this moment, in the present, we are still with the United States, engaged in proxy warfare, hybrid warfare, with Russia, which is Russia is not is not the Soviet Union. It is not the kind of communist place that it was in the 20th century. But it does, it does. Well, we'll get to. I mean, it's very hard to talk about these things in the Western world, in English or Spanish or French. But we'll come back to that. But I think that the fact that it starts in Moscow is important. In Moscow, Talos pursues Everett K. Ross for killing a CIA agent, Prescott, who theorized Skull rebels are plotting to incite war between Russia and the United States. So, I mean, it is about, I mean, the plot begins in Secret Invasion as the alien invasion is trying to start a war between Russia and the United States. Maria Hill arrives to assist Ross, but discovers he is a Skrull and calls Nick Fury. Returning to Earth to meet with Talos, Fury learns Talos has been exiled from the Skull Council and former ally Gravik has been taking a leadership position with the rebels. Fury is kidnapped by MI6 agents. So the British intelligence comes into this. It's all CIA shit. It's all, it's all Cold War, James Bond, Mission Impossible. It's all, as Nick Fury says, it's all special agent stuff. It's all planetary geopolitical wargaming and capitals and espionage and people putting black bags over people's heads in vans in capitals of major world powers, right? It's all that stuff. It's all Burn After Reading stuff. Burn After Reading is the satire of this, but it's all spy bullshit. But anyways, Fury is kidnapped by MI6 agents, taken to meet an old acquaintance, Sonya Feldworth. He proposes an alliance to stop Gravik, but she refuses, using a bug to eavesdrop on her and the Prime Minister. Anyway, I'm not gonna read all this. I'm just gonna kind of scan through it, just kind of give you the idea of like what the kind of things are happening in the show. So it's basically Fury is trying to meet with friends, trying to figure out what is happening. He's called back to Earth because there's big trouble, right? His friends are in trouble. He owes favors to some old friends. So you meet a lot of Nick Fury's connections. It is implied Nick Fury worked in the CIA for decades and decades during the Cold War. It's a lot of it is very like Cold War. Like Nick Fury will be in a room and it'll be everyone will be like, "You don't understand how it works now, Nick. You're different. You're changed." And Nick's like, "Back in the 20th century, we were good at U.S. foreign policy. Managing the empire. I mean, leading the free world. We knew how to talk to our Russian counterparts. We had people and all. The thing is, I mean, it is kind of true in the sense that, like, Henry Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski's emissaries, managers, thinkers, and U.S. agents and U.S. operatives. I mean, I'm not gonna say that they were fighting for good or that they were the most competent, but I mean, they did at least know a little bit more about Russia, about China, about the rest of the worlds in which they were doing things, which I'm not going to comment about the moral valence of them yet. But let's just say the U.S. did have more competent imperial managers. They had more, the superpower of the United States as the capitalist, wannabe hegemon. Now after the fall of this Berlin Wall, you could say planetary hegemon. They were a little bit more competent at the time. And so Nick Fury is this old guy, right? He's like an old guy. He's like the 70-year-old. He's like he reminds you of like when what the hell's his name? Daniel Ellsberger. Some old U.S. intelligence official is like the United States is so much more incompetent now. It's coming out like why are we engaging in shooting ourselves in the foot with this action, starting this war, weaponizing the dollar in this way? Why Biden? Why is Tony Blinken going there trying to smooth over relations, and then Biden the next day comes out and says something ridiculous like the head of China is a idiot and a dictator, and he's an absolute fool. So I mean, there are people. I mean, it is kind of like, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna, again, I'm not gonna say the U.S. is ever good, but they were like more competent at things. They were less bad at being terrible, let's say, in the 20th century. Now they're, is very much spoiled children stuff. Kind of like the people who run that sub, into their own death. But anyways, let's come back to the show. So Nick Fury's character though is he is kind of like an old he's an old CIA agent. He's an old U.S. intelligence agent who has worked with Skrulls. He has worked with he has contacts in Britain. He has contacts all around the world. He was embedded with the Skrulls, right? It's very much like you get the sense that neocons wrote this story, which obviously anything the West writes is written by the military-industrial complex and imperialism. But you get there's a lot of like details that are like, this feels like somebody who was cooing other countries and installing pro-U.S. imperial dictators was the kind of person who was the main script advisors. Because the way they talk about like, oh yeah, I was working with them. I was working with these other countries. We made all of these close friendships. We moved money when we needed to, and made sure that the of course, like in the U.S.'s mind, right? In the U.S., the U.S. ruling class's mind, they're doing this for the good of the world to make sure everyone falls under U.S. hegemonic democracy, right? But it's like but this is actually how it works. This is how it's not. I mean, obviously there is direct warfare. There's the British and the French empires and the Spanish have more overt, direct, not secret invasions. Let's say like when Britain and France went to subjugate China with the Opium Wars, right, and push billions of people into, or millions and hundreds of millions at that time of people into poverty and suffering to steal all their stuff. It wasn't a secret when they torched the Summer Palace, looted trillions of dollars of their wealth and heirlooms, and dumped millions of tons of opium to roofie the entire country, right? That wasn't a secret. That was just like, that's just colonialism, right? Colonialism is the non-secret invasion. U.S. neo-colonialism is the secret invasion, and a lot of times it's monetary. I mean, it's a kind of secret invasion because people often don't even realize their whole country is being body snatched and mind snatched and politician and business snatched by U.S. corporations, U.S. private interests, and the U.S. Neocons that are often in the seat of handing off the money, starting to backing the color revolutions and the terrorist activity to get countries stolen, like in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and etc. Pacific. So, in that sense, anyway, I'm gonna stop, thinking about that and move on. So, the invasion of the Body Snatchers has a lot of similarities because of the reasons that we talked. Also, the beginning of the neo-colonial era, right? The beginning of the U.S.-led era is the post-World War II era, right? Which is in the 50s. And there's a reason why the Body Snatchers comes out, right? The invasion of the Body Snatchers came out in the McCarthyite era right after World War II, right? Is because the United States saw, well, all the other former, it's really, I think I was watching Ajamu Baraka, who is the leader of multiple organizations, and I think is at the forefront of Black Alliance for Peace, which I know Big Teal is a part of, who's in this chat. But Ajamu Baraka is a black liberation leader. Came out today and said, World War II was the imperialist war, which is what it should be known as. It was Britain and France, right, and other European powers and some other of the colonial powers, right? Europe, Britain, Japan, Germany. And then getting together and then fighting with their fascists against each other, and then also against of course communist countries who were standing up against the colonial imperial powers. So but it was a fight to maintain imperialism, ultimately weaponizing fascism under liberal capitalist funding. Ford made billions of dollars. Britain and France made so much money. But they also fight amongst each other over who gets the spoils of all the colonies frequently, right? And so all the imperial powers, Britain, France, Spain, Germany, Japan, all of them were destroyed except one, the United States. And so the United States, after World War II, after the imperialist powers destroyed each other, the United States was the only one left basically untouched. Its infrastructure is still there. The vast majority, I mean, it lost barely anyone compared to Russia and China, who actually did all the brunt of the fighting. And the U.S. said, okay, well, now this is our century, right? And so they put the movies out like Body Snatchers, and they said the number one problem is communism. We have to stop this. We have to stop the spread of communism, which was spreading to Africa, right? And actually was liberating a lot of people there. There's a long history of this alliance. The Chinese and the African have a long history working together, and more recently, and also in South America, the Cuban Missile Crisis is because the Russians were trying to assist Cubans, right? And the United States, right? The U.S. is putting missiles in Ukraine, but the U.S. was the one who was freaking out about, as a capitalist colonizer imperial power. The U.S. was the one who was freaking out at the time about Russian missiles off its coast or very close to its border. But now the U.S. is putting missiles in Ukraine, doesn't see the parallels there. A lot of Americans don't see the parallels there when they should. But anyway, so this whole idea of there are people that are coming to take your. They're going to come into your country. You're not going to know who they are. They're going to brainwash your family and friends. Fun fact, brainwashing is from a Chinese term called xinao, which actually means getting educated and as a people and as a society, rejuvenating or invigorating and getting rid of old incorrect ideas and discussing and organizing together and coming to new understandings of better understandings based on what works, on science, on pragmatism, right? So that the term brainwashing is actually a U.S. Originated term in the 1950s, which a rich American book writer who worked in D.C. in the belly of the beast, he actually took this Chinese term and made it into an explanation for why so many Americans defected to communist North Korea, which was a proxy war against China, which was, again, part and parcel of the Cold War, or the U.S. capitalist imperialist hegemon, right? The only surviving imperial power, right? Fighting against the rest of the world. And the third world meant everyone who was not one of the communist bloc or the capitalist bloc, right? So that was the third world. And the United States was trying to win the third world, right? The U.S. is still trying to win the countries that made up that. Africa obviously was one of these places. Basically a lot of the other world, a lot of the poorer world that was not yet on board with the capitalist or the communist vision for the future, right, in the 20th century. It's a lot of the invasion stuff. It is also talking about, it's not just to Americans, it's talking to Europeans. It's going like, Europeans, do not go with the Russians, right? The European Union was really about, which the United States put actually huge numbers of the Nazis in power. Look up Operation Paperclip, Operation Gladio. The U.S. worked on trying to maintain white supremacist capitalist power in Europe, while doing a marketing photo. That's what the U.S. does best, is mass brainwashing, also known as marketing, of doing a Photoshop job on all the Nazis as whoever they could rehabilitate to put in power back into Germany and inside of their own government, into NASA, into their own scientific community, their own engineering community, right, into U.S. government positions, even in some cases. Maybe not like as president, but like, as advisors, as these people. It was all informational and psychological and narrative warfare for much of the mid 20th century. Well, I shouldn't say all, a lot of it. But then, of course, the U.S. was still engaging in hot war, proxy, genocidal, pro-capitalist warfare like Vietnam, like the war in Korea, like the wars, the wars and violent actions and coups all over the world, especially in South America, the sanctions warfare with the U.S. dollar hegemony that has been going on for such a long time, killing millions of people and impoverishing and causing so much suffering everywhere around the world, especially in the global South. So the when we talk about so I'm giving that all as kind of a greater context to when we talk about secret invasion, right? If you want to talk about a secret invasion, but you don't talk about like what the U.S. led narrative about the U.S. led century was, which was its narrative was capitalism is the best thing ever. Democratic, liberal, U.S.-led capitalism is the best thing ever, right? Never. Let's put aside whether, those things are, it had any of those things, or that all the democracy and the freedom and these things, actually ever came about, in reality. But that was the narrative, which is capitalism, democracy, freedom is the best. The United States leads this world. The United States will guide this world. Everyone will ally with the United States, and it's nowadays they call it the rules-based international order. And then if you become into this alliance, like the good Europeans and the good Japanese, and South Korea, and if you come into our order, it's India. If you want to be on the right side of history, you join us. Everyone else is the dark world. Everyone else is the evil world. Everyone else is authoritarian, communist. Everything is in grayscale. Everything is sad and bad outside of the United States' dominance. Very nice friends that America is very democratic with, right? It's not like the United States would ever spy on German chancellors. It's not like the United States would ever literally kidnap and crush, kidnap the CEOs of Alstom in France, crush French industry. It would never tank Germany's entire GDP by double-digit percentages when it felt that it could not maintain control over Europe, even hurting Europeans just to maintain American control. It's not like that. It's nothing like that. The United States would never do extraordinary rendition. The United States would never kidnap on a U.S. military plane the CEO of Toshiba in order to crush Japan's possible rising competition to maintain U.S. power. It's not like the U.S. would ever tank an entire country's create a lost generation of multiple generations of Japanese population just in order to stop it from challenging the U.S. Ruling class's interests, right? But basically, obviously that's what the United States would like everyone to believe, but that's not right. What is happening? Even the Taiwanese are like, I don't know if we want to. Literally, as U.S. officials have said, we will destroy TSMC. By extension, we will destroy Taiwan. They just said that out loud recently, right? And so, there is the U.S. Even Henry Kissinger, who was during the Cold War McCarthy era, Henry Kissinger said it's bad to be an enemy of the United States. It's even worse to be a friend of the United States, right? Because Henry Kissinger was the guy who was orchestrating the death of entire countries, like the mass death and the mass suffering, when countries are finally used as weapons to strike at Russia and China, right? When the U.S. used Afghanistan, when the U.S. is using Ukraine right now. The U.S. don't care about Ukraine. The U.S. used Vietnam. When the U.S. used any country, U.S. is going to use South Korea if it can't get away with it to disrupt the multipolar BRICS-led world, and China specifically. So the United States has never, but that's not. Of course, that's not, the narrative is that Russians and some Chinese people, some bad communists, the commies are coming for you, and they're gonna come secretly, like under your tablecloth. China is inside the police station right now. There's a Chinese weather balloon, right? What did Biden say? The Chinese weather balloon is gonna come secret invade your cops gender reveal party, and then I don't know, maybe the Chinese balloon will find out that you're your daughter is actually your son, and the Chinese will make your kid trans. Marco Rubio literally said that the Chinese wokeists are making American children trans. So the U.S. actually runs on that kind of. I mean, it's kind of like is the U.S. serious about any of these? What it's like? How it's a kind of like there's this kind of game of chance or a game of risk. It's really an unhinged game of risk played by toddlers that run the United States. But like, it's a guessing game. Does the United States ruling class, the capitalist ruling classes that run it, Marco Rubio and the Biden Republican and Democrat faces of the one party of the United States, do they believe Americans are that stupid that they would believe that a Chinese weather balloon is going to, undo America? Or do they believe that the Chinese are coming to America and changing your kid's gender? Are Americans that stupid? I mean, I don't know. The thing is, I legitimately do not know if, there are Americans that are absolutely that dumb. I have to deal with them all day when I correct them about Hawaii and geopolitics and history and economics. It's annoying. But it's kind of like, are they that misinformed, dupeable? Are they that diseducated, undialectical that they'll believe this nonsense? Or is the U.S. putting those stories out hoping they'll become that stupid and that gullible? I don't know, I don't know. But the thing is, nobody is trained how to think. It's not necessarily about being smart or stupid or having a low, it's people don't know how to think and know how to analyze and know how to like actually use evidence and rationality in the West. They're trained not to, right? And I talk about this a lot. So that's why there's still every place that's capitalist, right? Despite capitalism having materially proven to be a system that is demonstrably worse than socialism or anything other than capitalism, places that have capitalism are the places I would argue that don't have education systems or don't train people how to think or don't supply the population with the ability to throw off disinformation and to come to the truth. And they don't have collectively a way of, real. That's why, the people of the United States continue to suffer some of the worst health outcomes. Certainly of the developed world, how much they spend, the worst military industrial complex, right? They have no democracy, yet they believe they're in a democracy. Like, so many things are just completely wrong in the United States, right? And this is the most capitalist country. So it's like capitalism is like the residue left by a diseducated, unorganized, disunited, and stupefied population, right? It's really the people who have to take the country. If the United States wants to have healthcare, housing, affordable, not have billionaires making 3 billionaires making as much as half the country. If the U.S. and its legitimate grievances would like to be met, the U.S. population has to, take their country back. But at the moment, they, as Boots Riley recently said, I need 330 million people to be organized, right, and going on a mass organizing, all unionized, doing a general strike, something bigger than what we did in the 30s. And then so me as Boots Riley, as black communist filmmaker Boots Riley, I need to organize as many people. And so working with huge studios, Boots Riley made the movie Sorry to Bother You, right? But to make Sorry to Bother You, which is a black communist movie about the need to organize collectively to fight, that sharpens the class consciousness, and also is from a black perspective in Oakland. Boots grew up in Oakland. But he got the money to make it from Larry Ellison. Who's Larry Ellison? One of the richest people in the world. He's actually a Republican. He directly funded Trump's campaign. And Boots is like, I deeply disagree with Larry Ellison on many things, obviously. As a black communist, he's a billionaire white Oracle CEO. Literally got the server rights to house all of TikTok's data inside of the United States with a sweetheart deal from Trump. And so Boots, I needed that money so that I could make this movie that hopefully will reach people and maybe they'll think and get more educated. Because then eventually what we need to do is all of us. We need to. I need more people. So it's always informational, psychological, and warfare over the minds of all the people, right? And not necessarily. It's not about shooting people in the mind. It's about where people are mentally is what will ultimately decide the fate of the United States and the world by extension, because the U.S. is the most dangerous dying empire the world has ever seen. So like it's and so where was I going with that? So I think that like when people are talking about Russia, let me maybe I'll bring it to the moment since I'm already there. I want to try to tie this more into with the show as possible. But yesterday, right? Everyone this week it was all submarine, and it's kind of like I'm like, okay, I want to talk about something else, but all anyone will respond to is submarines, right? Is submarine this, submarine that, submarine, the whole submarine. Actually, the fact that like so many millions of people, right? All the wall to wall, every news, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all of social media, it was just all submarines, right? The billionaires, and like laughing at the billionaires is great. Or should we feel bad or should we not? And but the fact that so many people are just talking about that, well, I'm sure there's other things happening. I know there are other things happening, but it's like that's all I could get response to. That's part of how social media works. Is it hacks your brain, your dopaminergic, your ability to people want to feel like they're listened to and people are hearing them and talking back to them, getting the quote unquote engagement, right? Like engagement is good for the platform, but it's also important for the validation of the human beings that are putting out their posts, right? Like right now, if people are in the stream, I'm like, oh, this is good. If not, it's like, oh, I guess maybe I'll think about doing something else next week, right? So, but all that is rigged by the people who run the algorithms and decide what gets engagement, what gets put on the front page of other people's feeds, and what doesn't, right? And so they really pushed this the submarine thing to the top, even though it was a non-story, because actually the billionaires were already dead. The U.S. already knew that, right? The West already knew that. As I said earlier, right, because of the sonar and the other signal detection, which basically implied that there was an explosion, right? Now you could look for the wreckage, but the whole idea that you're going to save these people was absolutely foolhardy false from the get-go. It was just turned into a thing, so which was distracting people. I don't even know what exactly they needed to distract people from. I mean, the fact that the United States and the West is all dying, and the U.S. de-dollarization is happening at a rate that's like 200 times faster than most people predicted. I mean, I predicted that when the United States the empire would die and the de-dollarization would happen, it would be a lot faster than anybody thought. Like the Berlin Wall went a lot faster. People thought a year, 5, 10 years, and it came down in 24 hours, right? It's because. And as even other economists that I kind of look, other people, other international analysts who are pretty smart about this, they were saying things that are just not correct. Now, which is like, it's like once the bricks start falling in the wall, it's a lot easier to tear it down. Once people see that other people are moving towards the exit, the speed at which people move towards the exit accelerates, right? If one person leaves a theater, nobody does anything. If 3 people leave a theater, people look around like what's happening. If 5 people leave the theater suddenly and all at the same time, and they're going, oh shit, right? Suddenly everyone leaves the theater. It's not like, and then 10 people leave the theater, and then 15 people, and then 200 people. It's like everybody, when the signal is this is what's happening, and enough people do that, right? Everyone's heading for the exit. So anyway, but that's kind of a side point. That's not relevant, I think. So, but the thing is that, People are definitely trying to talk about the way that they can the way that they can manipulate people into thinking one thing or the other is interesting, and definitely I've seen that a lot on Twitter and on all social media. But coming back to Twitter for a second, I just want to talk briefly about the Russian thing, because I brought that up. Like, are the Russians coming? Everyone yesterday was talking about this coup, right? The Russian coup, Prigozhin. Is this a coup? Prigozhin is the head of the Wagner Group, which is it's a long story. You can go read about it. But is there a coup? This is the coup that there's going to be a civil war. Elon Musk is over there like Russia will be balkanized any second now and turned into a completely. Putin will be done. Of course, this has been the wet dream of the United States and the West for forever. I mean, even the Cold War. The Cold War was like, let's break up the Soviet Union. Let's destroy communism. Let's get rid of Russia and its atheist communism. And let's put Christian capitalism in this entire planet, right? And right? So this when these Vox, BBC, Daily Beast, uh, uh, the Atlantic. I mean, you type anything into Google, you type anything into the Western anywhere. Even on Mastodon, like, this place is getting whiter than ever. Which is supposed to be like the decentralized, free social media world that divorced from the stupidity and the corporate greed and the capitalist interference and the and the evil. What do they call them now? Surveillance capitalists. There's all these words in the tech nerd Western world, but the reality is, like, it's even gotten whiter. It's even gotten stupider in Mastodon in many senses. But all these articles, right, everywhere you go, in English and French and Spanish for the most part in the Western world. I notice I'm getting cut off from a lot of the Global South people that I usually see. I'm having a hard time finding their content on all sites, all social media platforms and content platforms. I have to, like, directly look them up. Which, if I was running the dying U.S. capitalist empire, I would probably do that too, because that would be a good way of trying to stop international collaboration, which would accelerate the rate at which liberation for all people and end of capitalism and racist white supremacy and colonialism happens. So, I mean, I expect the United States to. I thought the United States would start doing this faster. So, I mean, I'm not surprised, but you do see wall-to-wall coverage of Russian interference. Russian coup. Russia is being attacked. Russia will be dissolving. Russian rebellion, right? The funny is, New York Times and Atlantic, you should probably get your story straight, because this is all State Department neocon media. So, I mean, you might want to get your story straight. New York Times. The same story writers, the CIA, write the New York Times and Atlantic story. So I don't know. You might want to figure this out. Did Prigozhin plan the coup, or did Prigozhin, is it accused, right? But anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is that, like, so everyone's talking about this in the last 2 days. Like, if I just turn on Twitter, I look at the top. I'm probably gonna see another story about this. Other than cats and dogs, and submarine bullshit. Oh, Carl Zha is in Moscow, not getting couped right now. So good job, Carl. Carl is a Chinese. I've actually talked to Carl on the international panels that we've been on multiple times. Carl is a Chinese educator in Moscow, like, laughing at all these diseducated people talking about any second now we're gonna have a free world, because there will be some totally new democratic regime in Russia. Russia is undergoing a coup by Wagner Group. Florida's drag ban and Medicaid. Anyway, it's okay. Well, Florida's drag ban is not. I mean, drag bans are not good as a indigenous queer person. But it's kind of like what? Radio Free Amanda is also a Chinese actual left anti-imperialist person inside of the United States. But happy Pride weekend. Okay. Anyways. I think the point of this is that there's a lot of people that, obviously it's good to support LGBTQ plus community. Anyway, there's what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of levels of incorrect diseducatedness, lack of critical thinking, lack of informed thinking, lack of thinking a lot of the time. There's positive things in some senses, but a lot of at least I mix what I like. Big Teal, at least your friend over there, Dr. Ball, didn't get wiped out of my algorithm. So good job, Dr. Ball. But also, maybe you gotta go harder. Black, I mix what I like. You gotta go a little harder, because if the Twitter isn't wiping you out, that means that you're not hard enough. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. Okay. I blocked a lot of people though who are posting about the Russian stuff. Oh, yeah. Also this. When white Euros talk about white Americans, Canadians, where did white Americans, Canadians come from? Where did the Americans and Canadians come from? Anyways, okay, but I don't want to spend a lot of time looking at this. But the point is that, like, a lot of people were talking about that, especially yesterday. I guess now it's calmed down a little bit, but because the news is out. But everyone's chatting about the coup. But the thing is that, like, in actuality, um, at least again, I'm not an expert on the coup, but one important thing is that people jump to the conclusions that are fed to them by the news media, right? And sometimes by Elon Musk as well, right? Which is that the BBC says something, that's what's happening, right? The New York Times is saying, okay, well, actually, this is a bad example because the story has basically ended already. Yesterday was the big show, right? Well, because at this point, basically the head of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin, has cut a deal with, as far as I know, anyway. This is according to stuff, and I'm not going to tell you all the sources that I have because, reasons. But you can ask Carl Jha. You can go follow Carl. But a lot of the people who are, let me get all the body snatchers. Right. So the 24 hours of chaos in Russia. Wagner's mercenary boss, but pulled back from marching on Moscow. So as of now, even the BBC, which is an imperial Western capitalist rag, has to admit that it has not succeeded. For one long June night and a day, Russia's notorious mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin staged an apparent insurrection, sending an armored convoy toward Moscow, raising questions about. I'm actually reading this to kind of get what is the Western take, because I have a Russian take, I have a Chinese take, I have Eastern takes, and that. Now, this is the. I don't really care what the BBC or the U.S. news or Western left have to say, because they don't know shit. They couldn't tell their Vietnam from their Korea from their Ukraine. Let's be real. They would send money to blow up Vietnam and Korea and Iraq if they thought that it might, I don't know, if the news, if their bosses and their news and the CIA agents that lead their anarchist organization thought they might get, some kind of, pats on the head for that or something. Anyways, for one long June night, Russia's notorious mercenary leader, Russian president accused his former ally of treason, embarking on an armed rebellion and a stab in the back of our country. By the end of Saturday, Prigozhin had called the whole thing off, ordered his men back to base. So basically, it's done. It's done. This is not a new thing. Like, there has been a history of recent history of the leader of the Wagner Group making statements that were very critical, to put it lightly, of Shoigu, who is he's like basically one of the just under Putin level officials that leads the military in Russia, and he was very critical of them. He was not actually critical directly of Putin, usually for reasons. A lot of people have speculated that the whole Prigozhin Wagner Group kind of differences that he had, and the anger that he had at Moscow and at the Russian government was in fact a show for the West. A lot of people have speculated, because it's like the Wagner Group could not actually exist without the Russian military. That is all of its logistical support. Like, it's basically it's kind of it would be like if a one regiment of a U.S. military outfit, like, it would be like if SEAL Team 6 was like, we're gonna take over the United States. I mean, like, what you and what rest of the army, right? It's like, it'd be like if like a 200, it's not nothing. It's like 25,000, but that's like the whole entire Russian country, the Russian military, basically fuel, supply, provide weapons to, logistical support, political support, etc., to the existence of this one mercenary outfit. And so it's kind of it's kind of like this. Nobody could have thought that this would have succeeded, but there is some people thinking that the head of the Wagner Group is not himself a soldier. He is, he was basically a business person, right? Who actually ran, I think it was catering companies. He ran some other non-military operations previously, like as a business person, and then got into managing Wagner Group later on, and which is staffed by a lot of them are prisoners, but there are people who are actually it's Scott Ritter has described them as they're not just people who are there only for money. They do get paid, but they do like have an ideological component where they, again, you can not like what they're doing. You might not like Russia. You can say, guys, we're not like condoning. I don't want the world, and I don't want wars to be anywhere. Like, I would really love if the U.S. would stop doing proxy wars and imperial warfare and pushing all these wars and, causing havoc in the world, right? But, whatever you think about the people as a caveat, in case people go, Silver Spook loves Russia and he wants to see everyone die in the world. No, it's like, but the people who are fighting for Wagner Group do believe that they're fighting to defend their country against Nazis, against invaders, against which, anyway, I don't have time to go through the whole history of this conflict going back to 2014 and the U.S.-backed coup with Victoria Nuland and people like John McCain saying, fuck the EU, we're going to put Nazis in charge of Ukraine and put neoliberal billionaires behind them to make tons of money like we have done for literally dozens or hundreds of countries around the world, including the coup of Hawaii, which is very similar to the coup that the U.S. backed in Ukraine. Anyways, so which included bans on language, like Hawaiian language. The U.S.-backed Ukraine government banned Russian language and then started. The difference is in Ukraine, the U.S.-backed far-right and neoliberal government started shelling and killing ethnic minorities. In Hawaii, the U.S. didn't shell and kill Hawaiians. Okay, it didn't shell them, but it did kill Hawaiians. We did die in mass. And one of the ways they actually did set fire to tens of thousands of our homes and businesses in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So I take that back. It wasn't like direct military killing of Hawaiians when the U.S. backed the coup here. So anyways, the Russian president even accused the former ally of treason. Anyways, the point is that like this is done, right? But many people were kind of swept up in this idea, but not in the. Okay, now the attempted coup, whatever you think about it, there was definitely like multiple helicopters were shot down. The Wagner Group did leave Ukraine and got in a road and it drove north towards the Moscow. It was heading in a direction. It was kind of like, what do you think you're gonna? There were military units were deployed to surrounding the city of Moscow. They had checkpoints at bridges, just in case the Wagner Group convoys did make it all the way to Moscow. But this is why a lot of people think this whole thing is actually playing the Western world, because one thing that happened as a result of this, because now since the agreement, which involved a direct phone call from the president of Belarus, which is just to the west of Russia, and the head of the Wagner Group, they actually brokered a deal between the head of Wagner, Prigozhin, and Moscow. And so Wagner's standing down. They're not going to try to overtake. They're not going to try to overthrow Russia. And instead, what they've done is, but because they've headed north, like if you look at a map, a map of Russia, let's see, Russia, Ukraine. That guy is the head, right? So if you look at a map, during the actual coup, the Wagner Group were deployed. They were kind of back from the front lines of fighting between Ukraine and the Russian forces, and they basically came behind the front line, went up the highway, right? Not always on the highway, where they basically were traveling north, up in their vehicles towards Moscow, right? And they got about 200 kilometers to Moscow. Within 200 kilometers, there were a couple helicopters were shot down. There were no actual confirmed missile attacks, as far as I know. But anyways, when they got about 200 kilometers to Moscow, they stopped, and then there was the deal was reached between Belarus, which is right next to Russia, is right there, right? The deal was reached with the interceding of the Belarus as a mediator, the Belarusian president, and then the Russian Wagner forces deployed to the northern front of the battle, or a more northern front. I forget exactly where it was, but basically it's up here, right? So some people actually think like the entire that entire operation was about allowing the Wagner Group to move into a new position, right, with the West focused on this salivating, because of course, if you're America, if you're Biden, Trump, if you're Democrat or Republican, you all work for the plutocratic, racist ruling class. If you're the head of the EU, if you're Borrell, that racist neo-colonizer that said Europe is the garden and we have to root out the jungle. If you're the West, right, you're looking at the dream, right, of these unhinged neocons and neoliberals is the fall of Russia, and Putin will be couped, and then we'll have a compliant government that will privatize all the resources, and we'll take everything Russia has, and we'll make tons of money, and everyone in Russia will go back into poverty and be diseducated, just like we did to Hawaii and to Africa and South Central American countries and the rest of the world under neocolonialism, like I've been talking about. That's the dream of the West, is to subjugate, and then we're going to go to China, and China will be done, and the whole world will be run by white supremacist capitalist imperialism, right? So when Russia put out this idea, like, I'm not saying this is what happened, but this is one speculation. Any second now, there will be a coup, and Putin will fall, and Russia will collapse, right? The news of the West is going to flood everywhere with that, right? Because that's, even if it's not really founded, there's not a lot of empirical, historical, scientific evidence for how that could succeed. They're going to flood the airwaves with that. They're going to tell themselves, oh yeah, let's get ready for what our next plan is. And so one of the things that came out of this is that when the U.S. The U.S. and the West acknowledged, or they showed their hand, which is that, okay, now Ukraine, we're going to invade Belarus. The West, NATO, is going to invade Belarus, right? They made announcements, or they had their own military personnel in Ukraine. We're talking about making videos about, okay, now it's time to move on to the next operation. We're going to take Belarus. And so that was actually, so the Russians actually got the United States to show the West to show its hand. That's what they were actually planning. Oh, you guys, you're going to try to invade Belarus? Okay, well, we'll get ready for that. And then simultaneously, the Wagner Group went north, and now they could go, while the West was distracted, and redeploy the Wagner Group forces to the northern front. Right? Because it's kind of like, it's kind of like going like, oh, I'm just going to, like, imagine if you're like, what you really want to do is, you want to get, like, your friend there's like a pizza, right? There's like the last pizza, and you're like, your friend, I don't know, ate 3 pieces and didn't save you any. And then you're like, oh, I'm just going to go to the bathroom, and I'm just going to go. And, you happen, as you're walking to the bathroom, you snatch the last pizza. Or I don't know, it's just one example, right? You're saying you're going to do one thing, and you're moving in the direction to do that thing. But what you really want to do is another thing, right? So that's kind of like what one speculation is, that the Russia just wanted to redeploy their forces somewhere else without anyone realizing it, because if the Russia just started moving all these forces up north without all this other coup catnip, Russia coup catnip for the West. I mean, they love coups, man. They love their Hawaii coup. The U.S. loves banning languages like Hawaiian language. When they coup Hawaiian, they ban our language. That was the best thing they ever did, because the socialism and the universal healthcare and that universal housing and the anti-racist, anti-imperialist Hawaii that they destroyed. They made a lot of money growing pineapples here and building military bases in Hawaii, like at Pearl Harbor, and destroying Hawaiians like myself. So when you say, oh, it's a coup of a country that's not aligned with the United States, they just fucking lose their mind, man. But then while they're losing their mind, thinking about how awesome it's gonna be when we can auction off all of Russia's, energy, natural gas, and make so much money stealing all of their lithium and cobalt, talking about all the military bases they're gonna build all over Russia to attack China. Then the Wagner Group is like, oh, well, actually, we're gonna go and attack you in the north. So, anyways, but long story short, I know it's a long story and probably not necessary for the purposes of this, but a lot of people, when I say invasion of the imperial Brain-Snatchers was the alternate title of this. I was like, I don't know which one's better. I don't know who's going to understand that. Your brain has been snatched by the imperial capitalist world. It's even I say that as somebody who has suffered imperial brain snatching. I didn't even know I was a native Hawaiian person of the sovereign country of Hawaii. I didn't know the whole history I didn't know the languages. I didn't know Hawaiian language was banned when I was born, right? And I was 3 when it was unbanned, right? I didn't know the United States could the most advanced sovereign socialist country. So that is the brain. That's the real brain snatching, right? It's not the Skrull coming and they're gonna take your body. It's not the Russians that are gonna come and, I don't know, interfere to make Hillary Clinton lose. Hillary Clinton is a terrible candidate. The United States absolutely hurt so many Americans of all, black and white and middle class and poor. Not so much the rich people. They did pretty good. It's not like the Democrats were so amazing and that's why Hillary Clinton lost, right? It's not like Democrats were amazing and Hillary Clinton lost because of a secret Russian meddling, which was the whole narrative, right? That was MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, CNN. All it was fucking Russian meddling was why Hillary Clinton lost. Even William Gibson, who is a cyberpunk science fiction author who is like a legend in the field, he believed that Hillary Clinton absolutely had to win. And he actually, I talked to him because, I make cyberpunk adventure games like Neofeud, and I make cyberpunk science fictional games all the time. And I talked to him in person and he was like dumbfounded. He was found dumb. This very smart person, right? Because of William Gibson had his imperial brain snatched by the CIA that by the liberal ruling class that runs the New York Times bestseller list and the entire publishing industry for the most part of the West, including Britain. Britain is so neoliberal and liberal up its to the max, and that makes it like some of the most imperial brain snatch. Some of them like actually know they're the brain snatchers, but a lot of people don't even realize. Like William Gibson, like it's not that like there's this evil plot to destroy America. The United States is destroying itself. The United States created the plutocracy that it lives in. The United States, Obama and the administration and the billionaires chose to continue to hurt the masses and have double-digit increases in housing, healthcare costs, have the wages remain flatlined. I mean, at any second, the plutocrats run the United States. If they didn't want the United States to fully implode, maybe if they wanted the U.S. to keep going a little longer, maybe they would like do a new deal or something, But that's not what they did, right? Because again, of course, this brings the point that there's no democracy in the United States. But let's pretend like the United States plutocracy wants to not have complete instability like what they have now, where you have DeSantis and Tucker Carlson, the infrastructure falling apart. Let's pretend like somebody that runs the United States cares about the United States. Why would you just let it? Actually, a lot of people legitimately don't get it. Part of it is just hubris, kind of like the submarine. The United States is kind of run like Ocean's Gate submarine, which is a handful of super rich people thinking they're invincible, unstoppable. I'm going to build it of fiberglass, even though I know everyone tells me that it's going to explode and implode scientifically within like 10 trips or less. And so, but I'm so smart, as maybe some of that. It's like I can treat the masses of the United States as badly as I feel like it because I'm invincible, and now people are watching the entire submarine of the United States is imploding under the weight of the contradictions of its just grotesque levels of inequality, right? But still, if people of the liberal class, people of especially boomers and Gen Xers who live in they live in the Cold War disinformed brain, right? It's not really even their fault. I don't think William Gibson's like a bad person, but he literally thought that it was because of a Russian invasion that Hillary Clinton lost. A secret Russian invasion to destroy America by putting Donald Trump in charge. People still believe that to this day. I'm sure you, listener, probably have, especially if you're in the U.S., even if you're not in the U.S., relatives, especially older ones, who still believe that this is all of the problems in the United States are caused by Russian meddling in the 20-teens and late 20-teens and putting Donald Trump in charge. And now it's all Chinese meddling, right? Now, a lot of people are like, I don't know. Can it really be that the Chinese are why we don't have healthcare? Are Chinese people why there are trans people, right? Number one, it's not a problem to have trans people around, right? But there's people who believe that. The Chinese are manipulating Canadian and American brains to put woke SJW trans queer drag queen agenda into all your mind. Is that you have multiple layers of wrong. Number one, it's like stopping anti-queer, bigoted, hateful people, stop, all that stuff is propagated. Even the idea that drag queens are the ones that are grooming rather than it's actually statistically, empirically, it's pastors, priests, white guys, cis-straight white guys, politicians, business people that are doing all the actual child abuse, sexual abuse, right? And it's your imperial brain snatchers, but these are more specifically the conservative Republican brain snatchers that are making you believe, oh, it's all the drag queens that are coming. The drag queens are coming, right? The trans, the queers are coming. The liberal, it's like for the liberals, it's the Russians are coming, the Chinese are coming, right? Chinese are coming with in their secret police stations. The Chinese are coming with their weather balloon. The Chinese, what are the Chinese? What, like, again, right? It's kind of like the thing, right? If the Chinese wanted to do a thing, right, there would be Chinese military bases ringing the United States in, right? But that's not what's happening, right? They're not even thinking about doing these kinds of things, right? Like, there was a Cuban Missile Crisis because there were some Russian missiles off of Cuba, and then it was kind of like, well, but it's kind of like there is no actual threat of a secret or a non-secret invasion. We have to ban the TikTok. Even if the Chinese wanted to manipulate all of the minds of the United States through TikTok, they don't have the Chinese gave up control of the content and the algorithm of what goes into again, like what you see first, like control of the placement and the what is visualized, what is put to the top is not in the control of the Chinese. It's just like there's a company that's headquartered. There's a Singapore headquartered company. Remember earlier this year? If the Chinese wanted to invade America through TikTok, which multiple states have already banned it, they're doing a really bad job of it. You know what I'm saying? The United States invades other countries with Facebook and Twitter, and the CEO of Twitter celebrated all of the pro-U.S. imperial Arab Spring color revolutions it got done. Mark Zuckerberg is routinely overthrowing South Central American countries for the far right and neoliberal purposes, helping India keep its far right in place with Modi. Facebook is loving. Mark Zuckerberg is just like, hey, imperial managers, work with me and I can maintain global right-wing capitalist hegemony through Facebook, making everyone believe whatever I want. I'm going to get some more coups done in Myanmar and Thailand and Vietnam any second now. Just keep on funding me. If the Chinese really wanted to do such things, they're not, there's like, here's a social media platform and then use it. They're not like using it to overthrow the United States, right? If they, again, it's like there are people that are using TikTok who are upset at the United States for legitimate actual reasons. Like, for example, young people, right, have like no freaking future under a regime that's led by the fossil fuel companies and the U.S. military. That's the number one consumer of fossil fuel. U.S. young people their life expectancy is lower than it's ever been. The U.S. young people like can't afford anything, housing, rent, their food. So they're legitimately upset at all parties of the United States, right? And but the U.S. continues to exist. It's a secret Chinese invasion. It's a secret Russian invasion, right? And you should all join the U.S. military so we can stop the evil Russians and the Chinese, right? Anyway, so that's what I mean by invasion of imperial brain snatchers. I did not talk yet about, and yeah, thanks a lot, T Brown. I just know Big Teal. I see T Brown. I'm like, I see it as Big Teal. Anyways, the sub Elon Musk memes. I have my own sub Elon Musk memes. Let me just go off on. I'm gonna come back to some actual history for a second, but first I want to just show I made a couple because that's all anybody wanted to talk about. So this week, the reaction to the Titan submarine has shown that, like a digital Tower of Babel, social media is evolving into an increasingly ugly, chaotic space. This is from LA Times, right? A repository for the worst impulses and ill-informed thoughts that should be kept to ourselves. I mean, of course, my comment is the LA Times, like all capitalist billionaire-owned media, is an ugly space, a repository of humanity's worst impulses, wealth worship, and CEO simping. So, what the submarine reveals is that the United States, the West, the LA Times, the European Union, Canada, all of the West is ready to put millions and billions of dollars and time and energy, ships and submarines, Navy vessels to save billionaires, right? On a ship that they signed their life away on. That's basically a tin can with a PS4 or a N64 controller made with absolutely terrible materials, knowing that they were going to die on a ship like that, right? and the U.S. saw fit to deploy needlessly all this. It's basically the United States is just the U.S. and the West are just proving and showing how much they love billionaires, hoping that the billionaires will give them some more money, right? The Navy and the U.S. government officials, these LA Times is owned by a billionaire. Okay, so let's be real. That's why I'm attacking them specifically. But everything in the West is owned by millionaires and billionaires. And so what they were doing, it was about signaling to the billionaire class, we love you, we love you, we love you, and then signaling to black and brown people and the global South and the rest of the world, right? We don't care about poor people. We don't care about black people. We don't care about brown people. You can all die in the Mediterranean, right? That's the signal. And people wonder, like, you can't, the EU, you can't just keep on, like, doing this, letting all of these war-torn, colonialized by Europeans people keep dying in your waters and keep on treating them so terribly and think this will not have repercussions. I mean, the world is changing rapidly, the Europeans have gotten away for 5 centuries with this stuck up being barbaric enslavers and murderers and plunderers of other people, and then simultaneously thumbing their noses at them and calling them backward and worthless. And you're not going to be able to get away with that too much longer, for your own good. Also, it's just terrible. Stop doing that. But also for your own good, if you only care about yourself, Europeans specifically, but there's also, Americans that are, Americans are basically Euro settlers, and then black and brown people who have paid fealty and for some reason made themselves white inside, but they're all Europeans. White Americans are just Euro visitors. There's not the indigenous people of Turtle Island is whose countries that actually is. But the Europeans, you will not be able to get away with this kind of stuff. And every time you do things like Europeans and European visitors, when you save billionaire ships and put all those resources, all your media companies, all your governments, all your militaries, all huge swaths of your population, especially the privileged ones, are going to bat for these people, billionaire people, and then you're letting hundreds and hundreds of people die needlessly when you could easily save them. You're signaling to the global majority, 90% of the world, that's not European and not American and not U.S. friends, that you don't care about them, that you don't stand for anything good, that you aren't the place of democracy and freedom and human rights. You are violating human rights right here. You are never mind freedom. You are killing people. They can't be free if they're dead. And it's not. How do you have a democracy when you're just killing people for being poor? Anyway, so the whole idea, the whole concept that the West is trying to promote to the world, this is not the way that you do that, okay? But again, I don't know what is happening in the minds of these people that run the West, the 10,000 richest people in the EU, the US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. That's who runs the West. There's no democracy there. I don't know what's in your mind, but, you might want to think about not doing that anymore. Anyways, so that was one thing I said. The other thing was, Elon and Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk says he's down for a cage fight with Mark Zuckerberg. My comment was, why don't you go have a submarine fight and see who can go deeper, right? So Elon, if you go deeper, we'll call it Water Dome 2. Water Dome, 2 billionaires, men enter, no men leave. So it's kind of like Thunderdome, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. But Water Dome is gonna be like, Elon and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, 2 billionaires get into a submarine made out of fiberglass and put together with Walmart parts, and you go down as deep as you can go. Whoever gets deeper wins. And and so ideally none of them come back. Okay, and then we have at the same time, speaking of human rights, then we have the U.S. is built on historic and continued death of indigenous peoples. The U.S. Supreme Court is just doing its job to keep eradicating us. I mean, I'm a native indigenous person under U.S. genocide. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled the U.S. is not responsible for ensuring water access for indigenous tribes in a 5-4 vote. So nearly 1 in 3 people who live in Navajo Nation reservation do not have access to clean water, despite living alongside the Colorado River. So again, if the United States wants to talk about human rights violations of other countries, how can you say these things about, whatever you think about U.S. enemy countries, like we talked about a bit, how can you say you care about human rights when you literally are letting millions of people, including many thousands of people in this one place, 1 in 3, have no clean water, and your government is just going, well, you deserve dirty water. It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. The Supreme Court is a criminal organization as well, because not just Clarence Thomas, every single one of them is corrupt and it takes money from all kind of entities. The idea that there's justice in the United States is an interesting delusion. Speaking as somebody who is suffering human rights violations as a Native Hawaiian. But anyways, but let's move on a little bit to I think one more sub thing this week. Oh yeah, I don't care about billionaire colonizers. So on this one more submarine thing, somebody said, I feel for sub operators in Hawaii. I can't imagine business is great right now. So as a Native Hawaiian, I don't care about billionaire colonizers losing money on sub tourism. They should all leave Hawaii with the U.S. military. So in fact, we don't need none of us own submarines as Native Hawaiians. We don't need that here. And in fact, okay. So anyways, but let's come back to the coup stuff, because the coup is what I kind of wanted to talk about. And because I brought up, there was a coup backed by the United States in Ukraine in 2014, and I kind of mentioned something about that. So I just want to go a little bit more into detail. So when I talk about there's many similarities to Hawaii and the U.S. The U.S. was cheering on this coup in Moscow, right? Because coups are actually the number one method, one of the top, if not number one method, to maintain global capitalism, global colonialism, global racism, global subjugation, death, and destruction of the entire planet's ecosystems, which capitalism is, and mass resource extraction, particularly of fossil fuels, is the number one means of. So coup is actually if the U.S. is cheering for a coup, it's the worst thing in the world, actually. And so I'm not saying that every time a coup happens, it's going to be because of the United States, but so many times. Anyways, one of the times was in Hawaii. Okay, so as everyone chatters about a coup in Russia, remember in the 1890s, over 95% of we Hawaiians were against the annexation of our country, Hawaii, by the United States. The U.S. responded with a military coup, forcibly making us an enslaved colony, and then banned language and culture. So this is actually a picture of the USS Boston that landed in Hawaii in the 1890s to overthrow our sovereign country, with the world's highest literacy rate, universal health care, advanced industry, electricity pertaining to the U.S. White House, and racial economic equality. As you can see, this is the U.S. military marching here, getting off that ship, getting in Hawaii. Hawaii had, again, far more advanced country than the United States. Socialism was basically what Hawaii already had, right? Shortly thereafter, the United States, after arriving, we were converted into an oligarch-run banana republic for wealthy white capitalists, right? So this is a petition against annexation from against the President of the United States at the time, William McKinley. And so this is a document which goes on to state that whereas there has been submitted to the Senate of the United States a treaty for annexation of the Hawaiian Islands to the United States, in 1897, we, the undersigned Native Hawaiians and citizens of the District of Honolulu, now they had a separate, these petitions were called the Ku'e petitions, and there was a petition for every part of Hawaii. And this is just an example of one of these pages. And so those Hawaiians who signed their name here basically said, we do not want to be a part of the United States. We do not want to be annexed to the United States. We don't want to be added to the United States for legitimate reasons, right? Again, so this is the capital of Hawaii before the U.S. coup. These are Hawaiian leaders. The United States failed preconceptions along with the Europeans in an 1869 Paris Exposition, where Hawaii had far more books, engineering, scientific documents, like literature, poetry, even Bibles, because Bible's counted as civilized, Hawaii had per capita like many times more advancements and writings, like, you know, because like China has 6,000 white papers at its most in the most advanced topics like AI and biotech and nanotech and space and engineering, renewable energy, all that kind of stuff, solar, you know, etc. All these new technologies. The United States has less than half now the total scientific white papers and advancements and great publications. And so now Hawaii is in a similar place to where China was, but Hawaii is way smaller, of course, than China was or is. Hawaii was less than 1 million people at the time. You know, we're about 1 million people now. China is 4 times the United States size. So, but similarly, Hawaii had the world's highest literacy rate, universal healthcare, electric lights before the White House, mass affordable transit, industrialization, virtually no homelessness. And so the Europeans admitted that Hawaii was far more advanced than Europe, Britain, France, or the United States. This island is ahead in literacy, and the enlightened countries of Europe are behind it. This is on the right is an example of one of the trains that we built, the affordable mass transit. In fact, it was basically nearly free or very cheap to travel anywhere in Hawaii. You didn't need a car. There were ferries and trains and trolleys that could get you anywhere. It's very much like people wish they had affordable, cheap mass transit in the United States now. The cities are filled with congestion, overpriced cars that people can't afford. A lot of people are just like, young people are just not having cars anymore because they just can't afford them. So they're just walking or biking to work. But you can't get to work because work's so far away because of the capitalist Western design of cities makes it just, the cities are just becoming unlivable. Everyone's leaving cities. And so, but Hawaii had in the 1800s better cities than many American cities today with affordable mass transit. Virtually no homelessness, full racial equality, post-coup, all the statistics reverse. In the bottom left is Emma Kaleleo Nalani Na'earuk, who was the woman who invented universal healthcare. She went on foot to raise money and started the first absolutely free. Actually, there is no system in the United States U.S. has no universal healthcare, but there is no Nordic or European or Canadian healthcare system that came close to Hawaii. Hawaii had absolutely free healthcare. No money was exchanged hands in the healthcare system. The closest thing are in communist and socialist countries to the Hawaiian system. The closest thing. Like Cuba is approaching the Hawaiian system. But Hawaii, literally all the healthcare was 100% free. Your medication, any injection, any surgery, any operations, anything that you had in Hawaii, 100% free, no charge. The only people that were charged anything was a token charge for people who were just visiting. They just stopped in. That was the only, but basically it was a token charge to help make sure the system keeps going, just in case like lots of people suddenly flooded into Hawaii because the healthcare was free. Because nowhere on the planet Earth had free healthcare except the sovereign country of Hawaii, right? And nobody will tell you that in the United States. Bernie Sanders is not going to tell you that because Bernie is a neoliberal puppet. AOC, Cornel West, I wish he would say that when he runs for president. I don't know if he will. Hawaii was the only country on the planet Earth with universal healthcare, absolutely free. It's basically, for a century, there was nothing like it. The Soviet Union later on had healthcare. Cuba today has pretty strong free healthcare system and one of the best healthcare systems in the world, in part because it has free healthcare so people can maximize their potential as human beings. Hawaii also had electrified country in 1880s. We were powered by renewable hydro turbines, affordable mass transit, system of trains, trolleys, and ferries, like I said earlier. And so Hawaii was powered, the city of Honolulu had waterfalls spinning turbines powering all 800 plus lights in Honolulu City. And all the electricity was nationalized. It was not capitalist. It was socialist. It was no, basically cheap or almost zero cost if you wanted to use electricity personally in your household. The United States, when the United States, like it hopes to do in Russia, like it did in Ukraine, like it did in Bolivia, like it did in Venezuela, almost every South American country, countless African and Asian countries, right? The U.S. coup resulted in forced privatization of the Hawaiian electrical grid, took it from the government, gave it to private white capitalist oligarchs. They tripled or quadrupled the price of electricity. Hawaii today still charges the most exorbitant prices. The average Hawaiian electric bill is twice the average California and Michigan bill for many reasons. Not reasons that are necessary, because Hawaii had the cheapest electricity in the world at one point. Under nationalized non-cap, and also the United States white coup collaborators chose to destroy the renewable hydro turbines and replace it with dirty fossil fuel burning oil and coal in Hawaii. Why would they do that? Because it helped the United States empire, and they felt like they could make more money doing that, and it took power away from communities. So the United States literally had the solution to climate, the solution to healthcare problems, the solution to everything that the problems the United States and the world has right now were in Hawaii, but the U.S. destroyed it all. So that's what, when the U.S. does a coup, it's actually, every time the U.S. successfully gets a coup that it supports done, it actually destroys the future of humanity massively. It's actually the end of the world for a lot of future generations. You know, it's like, imagine if the U.S. had like learned and brought the Hawaiian system. Imagine if the U.S. nationalized the entire electrical grid, so there were no private electric companies, I don't know, price gouging Texas during the ice storms, causing millions of people's blackouts and exorbitant electrical bills all over California, especially during wildfires, right? Imagine if the U.S. had affordable mass transit and not a massive car-centric, unlivable city world where everyone is burning so much fossil fuel, driving everywhere, wasting carbon, wasting resources, having 1/3 of cities be parking lots, right? Imagine if the U.S. had copied Hawaii. Imagine if the U.S. copied Hawaii and had universal healthcare, rather than spending the most money in the world on healthcare, despite having the worst health outcomes, and millions of people dying because they just literally are duct taping their wounds when they like get in a car crash, and there's like a steering wheel shard goes through their pancreas, and they're just dying. They're just dying everywhere, and then losing all the wealth they have to exorbitant health bills. Right? Imagine if the United States copied Hawaii in the 1800s, rather than making the worst system known to man and perpetuating it with its European colonizers called capitalism. Right? But that's not the world that we live in. We live in the world where the U.S. secret invasion of Hawaii with its coup, right? That it's a secret invasion because the United States invaded Hawaii, but it's a secret to Americans and Westerners who don't know shit. So, right? So when the U.S. triggers a coup, it doesn't always definitely mean it's a bad thing. But what it definitely signals, if they're cheering it on, is or if it benefits them, then is that it's going to be bad for all of the world and the humanity and many creatures that live within it, except, you know, I don't know, like Hellspawn or something, the ones that don't hang out with Lil Nas. Hawaii's coup, backed by U.S. gunboat diplomacy to smash the country's building of an anti-racist, socialist, thriving country, was the blueprint that would later be used by the U.S. on countless other countries across the world, including Ukraine, Bolivia, and attempts now in Southeast Asia. So this is actually a cartoon the United States made of the sovereign country of Hawaii to get Americans on board with its not-so-secret invasion. Now it's a secret invasion because most Americans don't know. But this is the kind of racist caricatures they drew of us in the Philippines, of course. This is when the United States was trying to aspire to become an imperial power. January 14, 1893, these are the members of the white business community that met in a corporate office in Honolulu to plan a coup against the elected government of the Queen Liliuokalani. They were not sure how far they wanted to go, but they knew they had the support of the United States. So this is the secret invasions that you don't know about, right? I mean, so we're talking about secret invasion. These are the dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds, of secret invasions that most Americans don't realize, don't know about. Every time one of these happens, this kills the future of the world. It kills the future of the quality of life for everyone, including Americans. Every time one of these happens, so you don't want these happening, because again, it's a country that's moving in the path like Hawaii, building socialism, you know, providing actual racial equality, uplifting the masses, right? And then the U.S. goes in and says, stop doing that because you could be an example for the rest of the world, including Americans themselves. So really, right? The U.S. has a secret invasion of its imperial plutocracy. The people who run Washington D.C., it's like, you know, people go like, that's just anti-Semitic. I mean, like, it's not necessary. It's you know, that's something that imperialists will use to throw people off of their trail. Well, basically, like, the people who are making the most money, they're not all, you know, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, these people, you know, these are just white guys. It's not just them, but they're like the top 10 is a lot of white dudes, you know, and this benefits them, right? The people on the submarine, a lot of them, they were not some were Pakistani, but they were, they were the ones that are closely collaborating with the Western imperial system, and so these are all in secret invasions. Again, all over South Central South America, even Europe, all of Europe continues to be under coup. I mean, even again, there's a corporate coup in many, even a business coup in sense of Francis Alstrom. There was a soft coup even in Japan. Japan is basically owned by the United States at this point, and for much of the post World War II era. Hawaii, it's interesting that they don't put Hawaii on the map, but that's because this is since World War II. But if you go pre-World War II, you gotta put Hawaii on that map. You gotta put I think other African and South American countries, if I'm not mistaken. And this is just the United States. This doesn't count Britain and France and what they've done. So what do Hawaii, Ukraine, Taiwan, and Bolivia have in common? Imperial capitalists from the U.S. collaborate with local far-right wealthy elite to the detriment of the masses, then the global propaganda in the movies and the books, and airbrushing atrocities to make it stick. This is Nancy Pelosi visiting. I mean, you can't see this because it's got a little bit blurry, but again, in Taiwan, this is General MacArthur literally saying that Taiwan is an unsinkable aircraft carrier that we will weaponize to prevent the spread of communism, right? It's just a tool. The United States continues to say that we will destroy all of Taiwan in order to prevent the rise of China. Not because we care about the Taiwanese people. No, we don't. We don't care about the Taiwanese people. What we care about is using countries to maintain our power and capitalism and our hegemony. And if that helps the country a bit, okay. Like you got a TSMC built, but it's not because. And also, to be clear, working at TSMC is a nightmarish, hellish condition. You're working 12 hours plus per day. It's like a slave factory. It's Japanese imperial style management, right? The South Korean management, the way that South Korea is run, that's what produced Squid Game. Snowpiercer and Squid Game is about U.S. imperialism. People don't realize this, but it's about the South Koreans being like, this is not actually such a great thing to be just a giant fist to make needless proxy war, right? As a South Korean, you have the world's largest. Everyone is forced into the military service, including all the K-pop stars. Masses of the population are impoverished and suffering homelessness, which they don't suffer in North Korea, by the way, even despite sanctions, embargoes, and U.S. attempting to strangle them. So if you get some benefit, maybe a bit, from capitalist imperialism, it's always temporary and it's always contingent on the rest of the world suffering way more. And that includes Taiwan, which Nancy Pelosi went to in order to drum up support for a possibly World War III civilization-ending nuclear war there, which is unhinged. But not that the West has any hinges left. The United States is full of babies and unhinged people. The neo-Nazis that colluded, neo-fascists played an important, this is Western media, by the way, even admitted this. Neo-fascists played an important official and tolerated role in the U.S.-backed Ukraine. And in 2014, there was a U.S.-backed coup. Again, that was a coup to install, like in Hawaii, a pro-U.S. capitalist. Kolomoisky is the billionaire who basically oversaw the neoliberal gutting of that country. And there's a far right. Hawaii also had a far right, which is called the White Men. It was actually the White Men's Militia. It was a white men. Let me say that again. Hawaii had a white men militia, like the sons of, I forget what they had. I forget the exact name, but it was a white men only militia who held weapons against Hawaiian leaders and Hawaiian people. And then the U.S. military showed up and helped them. So again, it was a racist, right-wing coup backed by the United States and the USS Boston. In the Ukraine, it was Azov Battalion. It was the ultra-nationalists. It was the Stepan Bandera fans. Stepan Bandera was the Hitler of Ukraine, collaborated with Hitler, committed mass genocide, flying his flags with his statues. And so it was the same thing in Ukraine, in fact. In Bolivia, Elon himself said, we will coup whoever we want, when the Bolivian people said, what we didn't need was the U.S. government organizing a coup against Evo Morales, the socialist leader in Bolivia, so that you could obtain all our lithium there. And then Elon just came out and said it on Twitter, we will coup whoever we want. So when the secret invasion of Russia, right, or we're going to get the coup done in Moscow, Elon was like, I will coup Putin. That's what Elon was saying. I'm gonna coup Putin. I'm gonna take all of the lithium and the cobalt and the steel, and I'm gonna enslave all the Russian population, just like I did in Bolivia. That's what Elon was thinking to himself, because Elon actually makes a lot of the tech infrastructure, including satellites that the U.S. uses to maintain color revolutions and do global warfare through the Starlink. That's what Elon is actually directly works with the military-industrial complex. They don't care about Twitter that much nowadays. What they need him for is to keep on overthrowing countries around China and Russia with his system that he doesn't do shit. He just stands around and be's an asshat, and other people do the actual maintaining the satellites and shit. But but I mean, he does profit from all of that. Hawaii must. This is McKinley who said we must have Hawaii to help get our share of China. So the secret invasion in the 1800s, right? Speaking of secret invasion, was it the Russians that came to Hawaii? No, it wasn't the Russians that came to Hawaii. It was the United States who came to Hawaii and said, we're going to steal this entire country, and then we're going to use it to plunder China. And then we're going to have we're going to have a millionaire Dole show up and turn Hawaii into a giant slave plantation with the perfect servant. And we're going to sexualize all of Hawaiian people and bastardize their culture and sell Hawaiian shirts and fake Hawaiian pizza, which is colonizer pineapples, and then ban Hawaiian language and culture. That's what Dole did in collaboration with McKinley in the coup of Hawaii. So whenever you hear about this secret in Hawaii is the linchpin of U.S. imperial, U.S. Hegemonic full spectrum dominance. That's the official term they use to describe the United States policy. Dominating, not just that is domestic as well as foreign, right? That's controlling the world and controlling internal the country for a handful of the richest, most powerful capitalists that are headquartered in the United States. So it's important. Even if you have a rich class in Europe, in a place in Asia, in South America, they all have headquarters in the United States. They come to DC, they come to Wall Street to park their money, right? Park it in US dollars. Well, I don't know. America's going to run out of hegemony soon, possibly. But, they historically have parked their money in US dollars. They park it in Wall Street. And then they go to the DC and they try to maintain their country's horrible capitalist, ideally just straight up colonial dictatorship, enslavement of the population, right? So the rich of every country of the world, including China, Xinjiang's would-be ruler, Wibia Kadir, is the sixth richest person in China, richest woman in China, came to the United States to try to get to break off Xinjiang into the East Turkestan, collaborating with the United States, basically to balkanize, or basically to coup that portion of China to break it off, right? So any place in the world that has any wealthy, that's why the U.S. is not just some country. It is the headquarters of the world capitalist empire. Every country that has a capitalist class, they send their people, or they come, or Bolsonaro just lives in America and eats KFC on Fox News all day. And he's just like, oh, look how much I'm Bolsonaro, indigenous murderer, a fucking neo-fascist, and I live in Florida now because I love America. There's a reason why they all come to America, is because America maintains global capitalism and the coups, secret invasions. Sometimes they're not secret, like in Iraq was not secret invasion. That was just invasion, invasion of, Afghanistan. That was not secret. Syria, that was not secret, right? Libya, most Americans didn't know about that, right? So not quite secret. Vietnam, not too secret, right? Korea, not. The why and what they were doing, the purpose is secret. But the point is that you don't really have to worry about, and even inside of Ukraine, the Russians coming, it's really about the United States coming and knocking on Russia's door and then backing a far right regime that's murdering Russians. So it's not even that, it's arguable. I mean, that's a situation that's, it's like maybe Putin shouldn't have sent their forces in. At the same time, imagine that Canada is taken over by I mean, it's not really imaginable because it's, but imagine that Mexico is shelling California and Texas. Imagine if Mexico has some kind of government, just in some absolutely hypothetical. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. But imagine Mexico has a government. We're going to shell all the white people in Texas and kill every white person in California. And then Texas just starts massacring Mexico just starts massacring white people with shells. Because they're actually firing into Russia as well. Would the United States just let that happen? Just like, oh, it's okay. Just keep killing all the white people. Mexican military supplied by Russia and China. Just keep killing all the white people. We don't care. Is that really? No, what they're going to do is they're going to go and they're going to try to stop whatever the forces that are firing all these bombs and missiles and killing innocent people, blowing up schools and shit, which is what the Azov Battalion and the Mariupol forces, a lot of them in that eastern region of Ukraine, that's what they were doing. So people, but Americans don't know what it's like to have a real war in your country. That's why sometimes people say, some people, it's kind of, I don't wish there to be any war, but it's kind of like if America actually had all of California be blown to smithereens, right, and all the white people and rich people dying, just all of them just getting blown up, maybe Americans will think about what it means when you have tens of thousands of people getting shelled to death in the Donbass region, backed by a U.S. coup. I don't know. Maybe you might think about it. But Americans don't think about that because, again, you have a secret invasion of your mind snatchers, of your imperial mind snatchers. Nobody knows what the fuck any of this. It's like, I don't even know what the point of streaming this is because Americans are just going to look at this and they're going to have left, or most of them, because they're not just Americans, Westerners are just going to have probably left. But, some people, I think, will I hope people will learn something from this. But a lot of the time, it's like, it's hard to talk about this because the narratives are so deeply buried in everyone's mind through their fake news classes, also known as history classes in the United States, your K-12 education, your university education, everything you read, all the movies you watch, including Marvel movies. And Hollywood is just an imperial propaganda machine. Captain Star Spangled Underpants and billionaire philanthropist arms dealer Playboy, Avengers are going to save the world. That's all propaganda. So everything is baked in Secret Invasion. Just finally on Secret Invasion itself, just a few extra comments. Actually, let me read Big Teal's comment real fast because Big Teal is one person I know that gets it. U.S. stands by as Mexican military. No chance in hell the U.S. wouldn't pull up. Yeah. The U.S. population don't know about war. It's American soldiers who go out and fight in wars, they know something, and then they don't talk a lot of the time. They come back and they're just silent because they know they were fighting on the wrong side. Is the reason that is not actually understood and given. So, anyways. But let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so in another thing, speaking of Secret Invasion, I mean, in 2021, I did probably like 10 separate videos about Black Widow, about and you can go back and watch these if you would like to. I talk a lot about the Hollywood's imperial capitalist propaganda, especially like the neoliberal flavor of and neocon flavor of propaganda that goes into all Hollywood movies and includes Marvel movies, especially Avengers era movies. They're some of the worst. Like for example, I talked about. Let's see if I can find it. Peacemaker is actually one that I liked, but that's not Marvel. That's a different. The Vin Diesel stuff that Vin Diesel works on tends to be pretty good. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So if you want, like, speaking of Marvel series, TV series, I have one just about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and the Imperial propaganda in that. I don't know if I have the. Okay. Anyways, so I have one on Falcon and Winter Soldier. I have one on the Yellow Peril, Red Scare of 300. That's not Marvel specifically, or that's not Disney Hollywood, or that's not Disney Marvel Avengers, but okay, after that I started changing the topic, but sorry, I'm like forgot where I put all these movies. I know I did a lot of them though. Maybe I lost some of them. Yeah, I did Peacemaker. Okay. Perhaps I've lost my own plot. Okay. But anyways, maybe I might there was one point where I deleted a bunch of videos, so. Which one? Oh, Eternals. Yeah, I was trying to find the one I did about the Fast 9. I compare Avengers. In the Fast 9 video, I do compare Avengers to the Fast and Furious franchise, which is an important one. That was the one about international family versus the spoiled rich white pricks. Yeah, in the Fast 9, yeah, this one, yeah. Spoiled rich white pricks versus international family, because like there are some movies that I feel like are pushing against this, and movies and TV shows that push against this. but they tend to not be the ones that are made. They tend to be ones that are made by, number one, people of color and more internationalist people of color. Just as one example, John Cena apologized to the Chinese government for describing Taiwan as not a part of China, which is not a stance that the average Disney personnel is going to take. The Disney stance has been, and in this time, I did one about Black Widow in this time, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is that the people aren't watching The Mermaid, people aren't watching this or that Disney show because China's racist. That's usually what they say. Just on that, the people who worked on the Fast and Furious, Vin Diesel, again, also look at the majority of people of color. The main character is a non-white person. Vin is, he identifies as, he is ethnically ambiguous, but he's black basically. If you look at him when he was younger, he has the whole afro and everything. So you have like a non-white person. You have lots and lots and lots of people of color from all around the world, right? You have Sun Kang, he's Asian. You have black from South America, black from Britain, from the United States, and when it comes to like how are we going, what is our stance on Russia and China? Well, it's like, they're not necessarily like I am not saying, and I don't think Vin would say, oh, they're everything great and they're just like they're the best thing ever and they're utopia. But it's like the stance is like, we're sorry that we said something false, which is that Taiwan, even Tony Blinken this week, even Tony, the diaper baby Biden administration neocon said, Taiwan, we stand by the one China policy. Taiwan is a part of China. So that was actually kind of amazing. I didn't think Tony had it in him. Tony Blinken had it in him to tell an ounce of truth in his life. That's pretty amazing. But anyways, in this time, the U.S. was still, most of the U.S. a lot of the U.S. is still like, oh, we have to liberate China, we have to save China from save Taiwan, save Taiwan. And John Cena came out and said, we're sorry that he said accidentally, Taiwan country. I'm so happy this show is showing in the country of Taiwan. And then he apologized in Mandarin. So number one, John Cena speaks Mandarin, right? And Vin Diesel said, thank you so much to China. Thank you, China. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, countries in Africa. Thank you to the rest of the world for watching this movie. What was the United States response? What was the Disney response? What was the response when they didn't watch their Falcon, when they didn't watch their Black Widow, when they didn't watch their mermaid movies, right? The Disney movies. It's always like, well, China's just racist and they hate black people. China doesn't like women. China hates gay people. Why do you gotta say shit like that? Why do you gotta be like that? Like, why you gotta be like that? Like, why you gotta make movies about Russians are coming to invade the United States? Like, why do you gotta like go to Moscow, right? And then have evil people coming from Russia, which is all irradiated and everyone's homeless and they hate black people. I mean, it's kind of implied that it's scary, walking around while black in Russia. The thing is, like, I've not walked around while not white in Russia, but, I've been in the United States and it fucking sucks to be not white. Every time I ever cross the border, I get pulled in like 3 times, I mean, I'm slightly exaggerating. I've been pulled in 2 times to the same border. The U.S. hates brown people, certainly. And, but it's like, the United States and Disney, which is one of the whitest, most imperial movie corporations. It's literally the ears, as I said last in some previous streams, are synonymous with the United States. The Mickey Mouse ears. It's been closely tied to the United States empire, right? In manufacturing soft power for the United States. Disney has no place to be talking about how racist these other places are. The United States has no basis to be talking about how racist the other places are. And that's not a good way. If Disney and the United States as a whole, because Disney works for the U.S. empire, if they want to actually start like, partnering with other places, like actually like get more people to not, really hate the United States and the people even inside of it, certainly the government, if they want to start building cooperative, actual democratic relationships with the rest of the world, they should stop that kind of attitude. They should take more of the Vin Diesel attitude. They should take the John Cena attitude, which is like, if don't lie about other people. I know it's impossible. It's impossible for the United States. But I mean, maybe one day, Americans and their government can stop being ignorant about other people, right? Lying about other people, right? Just accusing them of things, projecting their own problems, like their own racist histories, and going, well, the Chinese must be more racister than us. That's what even. I mean, that's not just the government. That's Americans generally, and not just Americans, Westerners generally, Europeans too, going, oh, China is more worser than us. That's why it doesn't matter how bad we get, because there always will be worser than us. That is like, you don't know anything. You don't know anything, right? Take the Vin Diesel approach, like, you know, like, thanks for watching our movie, you know, and that's why he's making more money than you. Guys, like, you know, it's like, thanks for watching our movie, China. Thanks for watching our movie, people in Africa. Thanks for, like, you know, also we'll make sure that we, like, you know, show some of your, you know, also, like, all the Vin Diesel movies are about the problem of spoiled rich pricks, right? The United States is over here, right? The West is over here trying to give yacht boy and boat boys, all the submarine Ocean's Gate boys, as much fellatio as the U.S. can manage, right? They're over here like, what can we do for you? The U.S. is over here like, what can we, spoiled rich Elon, spoiled rich Ocean's Gate, what can we do for you? That's the United States, right? This is the U.S. is like, what can we do for you? Can we forgive $450,000 of a PPP loan that you didn't even need? That's what the United States is doing. Let's give billionaires who don't need a loan $450,000 that's supposed to go to save small businesses as the U.S. is going through economic turmoil in COVID-19, and then let's forgive that entire fucking loan. So if you have student debt, the U.S. won't cancel your student debt, but it will cancel Ocean's Gate's billionaires' debt. And the U.S. is over here, and Canada is over here. What can we do? What can we do to save the spoiled rich pricks getting themselves killed on the Titanic? Let's save them when they're already dead, and we know that because we love spoiled rich pricks so fucking much, right? And Vin Diesel's like, fuck spoiled rich pricks, you know. So that's why, you know, I mean, it's not always clear, but I mean, like, this is, you know, this is something that you will, if you look closely at the stuff. It's not like just anything that he's ever been in is just good, but like the stuff that he chooses to be in and the stuff that people that he's associated with tend to choose and to be in, tend to take more of this internationalist stance, which is very important. There's movies that are Western movies like James Bond, and, you know, even Secret Invasion. It is an international movie in the sense that Secret Invasion is starting in Moscow, but even, you know, James Bond, Mission Impossible, they go to other countries, but they're not internationalist in that sense. They don't care about the countries they're in. The countries that they're in are just sets. The countries, when James Bond goes to a country, is to try to make a proxy war against Russia or coup a country. When Mission Impossible goes to another country, right? When the A-Team, when the Avengers go to other countries, what are they doing in those other countries, right? Or when Captain America is in other countries, is he trying to liberate the world from U.S. imperialism? No, Captain America is in other countries trying to make other countries believe that America cares about them as an empire. It doesn't give no fuck about them. So there is no possible future in which there is a good Captain America movie. There's no past in which there's a good Captain America movie. You know, not with the current history of the United States, right? If the United States was no longer a imperial planetary Death Star, I mean, maybe someday, but I mean, that'll take a long time. Maybe like in 500 years, you know? But I mean, that's a big if. So number one, you know, Vin Diesel is better. All his movies are better than all the Western movies because he doesn't make movies that have Captain Star Spangled Underpants in them, you know? And that's not what it's about. You know, it's about like, you know, again, it's like, so there was an Iraqi today who was like, why is, you know, what is this Fallujah game? What is this 6 days in Fallujah game that's about glorifying U.S. war crimes in Iraq? What is this disgusting? Iraqis were like, what is this game? What is this game that airbrushes the United States Empire's one of the great, even Noam Chomsky, right, who is a white person, is like, you know, what is this game that's glorifying the greatest war crime of the 21st century? I mean, you know, maybe there's bigger ones later on, but, you know, at the time, he's what he said. And Fallujah, 6 days in Fallujah, is about the United States going, no, we're amazing and awesome, and we saved Iraq by killing innocent children. So, you know, And Iraqis were like, what? How? I would love to play a game where you play the good guys, which were the Iraqis in U.S. genocidal war in Iraq. I wish you could play a game, right, where you're not on the other side. But you can never play that game. You can never be in that. You can never watch that movie, right? When you're watching Captain America save the world, you're on the wrong side already, you know? But you can play Decolonators, because Decolonators is a game where you play the Vietnamese fighting against the United States illegal genocidal invasion. You can't. I don't have a Decolonators where you. I don't have Decolonators Iraq where you fight the United States empire yet. But you know, there's one for Vietnam. So, I did make that game with my friend Luna Oi, who's Vietnamese. So, but let's finish up. It's already won. So the you know, coming back to this. So I think that when we talk about Secret Invasion, the show, finally, they use AI on the intro, and it's unsettling and messed up. But what, you know, this is the lie. I know I said I want to talk about AI for a second. So let's talk about AI for a second. So Secret Invasion uses plagiarism software, generative AI art, right? Which and somebody brought up, well, what about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Well, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, right? Let me see the AI art. I just had the article up here. Yeah. So the Across the Spider-Verse uses tools that streamline and like speed up the artist's animation process, but it actually artists are actually doing and designing and creating the art, right? There's nobody is like having their art style and their artwork stolen and then not credited in another creation, right? In the intro to Secret Invasion, unfortunately, it's in the Disney Plus debut. There was an intro sequence that's AI generated, and so it uses the director Ellie Salim admitted to Polygon that the opening credits were designed by VFX company Method Studios using artificial intelligence. They did not say which AI tools used. Salim described the generative AI tool to Polygon, but confessed that he didn't really understand how it works. So even the guy who, even the head of the show was like, I don't really know what happened, which basically means like, I mean, I don't know is the best answer to oops, I did a bad thing, which is like maybe we plagiarized artists is better than I plagiarized artists, right? He said the team would feed the system ideas and themes and words, which would then go off and do something, and he could change it a little bit by using words, and it would change. The Method Studios told Hollywood Reporter that the team used custom AI tools to create the characters' attributes, movements in the credits, but no artist jobs were replaced. While AI was used to help make the overall production involved an actual art department. The end credits of the first episode, there's mention of AI technical director, animator, VFX technical coordinator, art director, and creative lead. Production process was highly collaborative and iterative with dedicated focus on the specific application of AI toolset. Now, obviously, like much of the show is live. It's obviously like live action. Actors are being filmed for a lot of the show. It's like for a Marvel thing, it's actually got lots of actual live action. There is CG and special effects, but it's not like most of it is generated by a computer. I mean, most of it's not computer generated, period. The intro is all some kind of AI generated something, right? This is the thing was where was that? Sorry, maybe this is the wrong article. There's another one. There was one of the creators, like the guy who actually worked on it, said, "Oh, this is terrible." Where is that? The one of the creators. Yeah, Secret Invasion's opening credits are made by AI. Here's why. So there's the actual creator, or one of the art directors, or the art director. I can't find that tweet. Who was upset? Let me see. I can find that on Twitter maybe. Let's see. Secret Invasion art director intro. Yeah, it's somewhere. Okay, maybe I'm not gonna be able to fit. Um, I'm always use AI for Secret Invasion intro that was paying a job. That was a paying job for many artists. Add this to the heap of industry-wide lost work, replaced by plagiarism software, aka generative AI. So the thing is, like, even the person who basically created the art for which the AI would be used, admitted that, or not admitted, they said, like, this is terrible. I hate that my art was fed into this AI and is being used in this way. This was, this is taking from myself. I did not sign up for this. I did not okay this, right? The company just decided to do that because it thought it would be better for them. So I can't find the actual quote, but if you look it up, you'll find the one of the lead artists on the Secret Invasion talked about how he was really upset that his what they did with his art. So ultimately, again, it's like, it's not really necessarily like using a tool, right? Because the thing is, AI, like, the word AI is just really not a good word. The word is used to, again, it's kind of used to brain snatch people and confuse people, so they don't really understand what they're talking about. We're talking about, like, because obviously, for example, like, there's AI inside of a video game. When you're playing Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 6, right, against a non-human opponent, you're playing against an artificial intelligence that's controlling the other fighter, right? Whether that's Ryu or Chun-Li or whatever. When you AI is used to do like a mass analysis of skin cancers or analysis of weather patterns to try to help guess weather to make better choices for a variety of things, right? Or AI is used for lots of things, to detect exoplanets. AI is used to speed up and make more efficient train times. Chinese uses this all the time. Make the ports more efficient. Robotized shipping ports, that could be considered AI. So there's lots of things. Not all these, they have like very different internal mechanisms, right? But they're doing things that like have some. They're doing tasks that might be considered something that requires a human to think about it at least a little bit to do it. But they're all being but they're different sort of activities that are all being lumped together in what's called AI, right? So the Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse AI, right? So Spider-Man Across the Verse. So the Spider-Verse use machine learning. So machine learning, right? Again, it's an AI. Again, it's artificial intelligence, but the way that they were using it, right? Unlike Secret Invasion, I don't know if I want to get to any actual quotes, but but the way that the Spider-Verse used it is artists, like, if for example, when they're animating, a face, they're making a facial movement or a character's arm movement, or drawing something that is repetitive. I use that kind of AI even to do like a batch, like, it's not the same, but if I need to do a repetitive thing, because I paint everything for Neofeud and Neofeud 2, the video games that I work on, right? Or even Decolonators, if I have to do the same action again and again, this has been around for decades, right? You can automate a process by going, okay, I want you to open up this image, decrease its size by 80%, add like a red hue shift filter, and then close that file. And I have like 100 files, and I don't want to physically open a file, decrease the size, red shift everything, and then close it again 100 times. It's going to take me 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So to save 20 to 20 minutes doing a repetitive task, I'll have like a Photoshop batch process. That's it. You could view that as a kind of form of AI because it's something that a human might have to do, right? But it's repetitive, and it's known how to classify that task and then have the computer do it. So they can have the computer automatically do this, right? And so things like that, and it's a bit more complex what they were doing with Into the Spider-Verse than just, decreasing sizes and changing colors. Like, they're doing things like, if this motion, I want you to like make this character smile like this in this way. So use the kind of animation that I used previously, but do it again, so I don't have to redo that. Also, Into the Spider-Verse was very labor intensive. Then that was another thing that came out recently, that the labor that went into the Spider-Verse was very labor intensive. And actually the director, the problem with it was that the head, one of the people's running into the Spider-Verse, like had people redo things 5-6 times and actually burn out a lot of the animators, right? So, you know, with that's a whole nother topic. But when it came, but part of to save the animators some time when they're redoing the same thing 5-6 times, the same scene 5-6 times, because the director says, I want to throw that out and change this. Okay, redo that, redo this, redo that. Apparently that happened a lot because the director like didn't understand how the animation process worked very well. It's another problem when you have billionaire spoil rich pricks running your shows, is they don't know how actual 3D generated animation works, or they don't know how movies work at all, right? And they make terrible decisions, kind of like people who run submarine companies and make terrible decisions. But the AI is not that was used on Across the Spider-Verse, from what I understand, was used to speed up routine tasks, but the actual artist creations were all appropriately credited, right? Whereas in the intro to Secret Invasion, the way and how the art was generated, number one, was not appropriately credited, and the use of artists' work was not remunerated, and it was not agreed to when they added it to the software that generated the content. So really, the main thing about that is not necessarily about the kind of output that is being put out, but it's really about taking the work of creative workers, right, and then trying to erase that to make more money for a capitalist, which is greedy, corporate entertainment company. Which, again, that's all we have, right? There was I don't have time for this because we got to get out of it, but there's a whole other topic, which is like, there's a show, Holly, what is that show called? The show that is based on the 50s musical. What is that? Is it Pink Ladies? Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies. So there's this show that Holly was watching a lot, and Holly likes, which is the Rise of the Pink Ladies. And this show, Grease, Rise of Pink Ladies, was just announced that it would be removed from the canceled, and it will be removed from the, not just canceled, Rise of the Pink Ladies will be removed from the platform. So why is Paramount, right? Which is what is Paramount, right? Like everything else, it is a capitalist, only profit-seeking company that doesn't care about art, doesn't care about shows, doesn't care about anything but making more money. And so they made a decision to not just cancel but remove it from a platform. Why are they doing that? Why is there there's a WGA strike, there's writers and actors and now possibly directors as well, all striking along with lots of other people. Why are they doing that, right? Why are they doing that? Well, because that's what has to be done to end the capitalist, imperialist, racist system. But anyways, also they're doing that because they're being underpaid, and AI is a major taking their work and replacing them, and they're not getting the credit for their writing and their art is a major thing. And so the studio, and another thing that the studios have been doing on top of underpaying the writers and artists and creators and actors, etc., is in order to make more money and not pay the writers, is to have all of the creative workers create a show like Rise of the Pink Ladies, or like, Secret Invasion, or any show, create the show, right? And then the writers are supposed to be paid residuals over time, right? So writers are and actors as well are paid after the creation. A lot of the money comes after, as over time they're paid certain amounts of money, those called residuals, right? So if you get a show done, you put it up, and then it gives the corporation the benefit of people keep signing up and watching content, right, on the platform for that week. So the corporation gets the benefit of the content being on their platform and the draw, because people want to watch shows like this. But then the corporation doesn't have to pay the total amount to the writers and artists because the show is gone, and because when the show's gone, okay, well, there's no more residuals for you. So basically, why are so many shows put up and then canceled after the second season, or now after the first season, and not just canceled. They're put up on the platforms and then they're taken back down so fast. Why is this happening? The reason is, again, it's the corporations trying to take as much money away from the creators and put it in their pocket, right? So it's actually the same reason why that's happening. It's the same reason why it's the same thing behind the AI, which is like, we just don't want to pay human beings. We rather like steal their art, and AI art bros and all the basically talentless, mediocre white guys who have an MBA from Harvard and want to make a ton of money, and they crypto and NFT and all the pump and dump stock schemes are blowing up. The US dollar is running out of steam, so they're trying to make money just ripping off artists, right? Pretending like magical Deus Ex Machina is some god machine. They play too much Deus Ex with Elon, and they all become crypto art business MBA bros, thinking that they have some kind of it's basically a scheme to make more money, like putting up and canceling shows really quickly before the creators get their pay, like just not paying writers and artists, like threatening artists and writers with AI replacements, right? Like that they can't actually make good on, because the AI is actually not that good at doing a lot of things that they say that it is, but it's a threat to increase the corporation's suppression power of wages, because everything is about perception, everything's about the zeitgeist and the milieu. It's even like when, to come back to Wagner, it's like when Wagner, even let's pretend like it's not, the whole thing was an orchestrated play to get the West to reveal its hand in the U.S. proxy war in Ukraine. Let's pretend like Prigozhin and Putin actually like had, and Prigozhin and the Russian government had differences. Moving all the tanks and all of the weapons north towards Moscow. I mean, it presents a credible threat, and then that's the negotiating power. So similarly, which the Russians cut the deal with the Wagner group, right? And nobody got everything they wanted. I think they're saying that actually Shoigu, like some of the Russian government officials might step down, and the Prigozhin will step down, and there will be a deal cut. Russian fighters at Wagner will get some of what they want, good contracts and some outcomes that are beneficial to them, and the Russian government gets what they want. But it's like kind of like there's a movement that kind of like gives, like, there is an active threat of what will happen if you don't cut a deal. We're gonna just keep coming up, and then you're gonna have a bad time, right? So the threat of the economic threat against the capitalist owners of corporations is like a movement. It's kind of like the tanks advancing on a capital, right? The workers withdrawing the work power is in a direct assault. It's a threat, and it is an ongoing assault against the Disney, against Paramount, against all the capitalist corporations, because they're not going to be making no money if there isn't any content being put out by the workers, right? So that's a threat. And then from there you got the negotiation, and they go, well, if you don't come to the bargaining table and cut some kind of deal that isn't screwing us over, writers, artists, then we're gonna keep on we're gonna keep advancing, right, like a convoy upon your capital, which is what? The boardroom, right? What is the capital? Ultimately, it's Wall Street. So and it's the people that run the capitalist plutocracy. So the and so that's why the strike continues, and I hope that it does continue, because the corporations, entertainment is just one subset of the total world's capitalist entities and corporations, but they are ones that are they are important to the United States continuing its hegemony and its imperial capitalist hegemony, because if without them, the shows people watch might be socialist shows. They might have to watch Silver Spook things. They'll be watching more Silver Spook streams. Because there won't be any more Marvel nothing. Anyway, you can't watch shows that make the United States billionaire, philanthropist, arms dealer, military industrial complex playboys like Iron Man and the United States with Falcon look good. You can't have movies that maintain the soft power, and even games. I hope the games industry all goes on strike. You won't have anything to keep the U.S. soft power if all the workers withdraw the engine that pumps out the propaganda. Which I kind of just wish that Hollywood just dissolve and fall apart. The writers are going to strike for the next 10 years. Russia and China will have the BRICS will have surpassed the United States by then. So, actually way before that. So, anyways, but that's good. It's 1:28. We got to leave. Thanks a lot, T Brown, for hanging out. You don't have to pay residuals on music, voiceovers, and other licensed works. Indeed, yep. Victor says that the plot thickens. Anyways, thanks a lot for everybody for hanging out. and we will be back in the evening. We were supposed to have a stream, but with Luna, but it looks like it's gonna not be this week. So might be another week. It's supposed to be an international LGBTQ plus discussion. However, don't forget, you can support us if you appreciate the education and what we talk about and what we try to do our best to do here. I want to just say one more time, like I don't support, I hope there are no wars. I don't want war between the U.S. and Russia and the U.S. and China. I don't want any of those wars, and I want people to die and suffer. I also don't want Hawaii to continue to suffer genocide and ongoing displacement. And I don't want imperialism and capitalism and racism to keep being around. So, but yeah, just as a disclaimer, in case somebody says, Silver Spook, you just want everyone to die in some terrible war in Ukraine. I'm like, no. You can support us through Ko-Fi and Patreon. Oh, thanks to whoever just donated as well. Thanks to McClubbin for your generous donation. And also thanks to everyone else who has. And you can also support us through Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. If you want to keep supporting anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist, Native Hawaiian, actual decolonizational education, consider becoming a Patreon. We could really use as many as we possibly can get, because we're not even close to the first goal, and that way we don't have to worry about money all the time, and try to do all the side hustles that I can to make sure we keep the lights on and the bills paid and the roof up and the kids and everyone fed. So consider supporting us, and you get access to the Silver Spook Discord, Silver Spook behind the scenes on what we're working on, and Silver Spook University, which is 1,000+ hours of my content categorized according to topic when you become a Patreon member. So consider that. Also, you can get Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Blade Runner that I made. That is a game that is also on Steam, and it's also on itch.io. And if you have a second to leave even a very short review, it is hugely appreciated, because it does help the game to be recognized in the Steam algorithm. Also, check out Hill Agency. I wonder if it's not related here. It's in my. I just left I took a long time to leave my review for Hill Agency, but I'm gonna give it a quick shout out, because Hill Agency is another game that's made by an indigenous person, that is Megan Byrne and Megan's fellow workers at Achimo Games.
Imagine a world on the brink
I
of
talk a lot
freedom
about this,
from
but it's a cyber noir
oppression.
detective game in a
2262.
post-colonial future.
Crime. Class
And this
conflict.
game is also. I
Propaganda.
left a review.
A familiar story
myself
hindered only
after
by those with
I meant to
plenty
do it
of
a lot sooner,
time
but
and little to lose.
An amazing,
Detective
important cyber noir
Maigan Hill,
detective game,
the
trailblazing new
sleuth of
ground in the
Agamaska.
genre and the gaming as a whole.
Avoiding
So
the
anyway,
past became
check that out. But you can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux. It is on sale on itch as well, and it does support everything that we do here. And you can give whatever amount you would like. If you would like to support us with more money while you buy the game, you can donate extra money while you pick the game up. You can also get Decolonators, which is a game about kicking capitalist colonizer butts out of your sovereign country. This is a game about a U.S. secret invasion. Okay, this is the real secret invasion, where the United States tried to bomb human rights and freedom and capitalism into the Vietnamese people, and caused genocidal war, death, destruction, and decades of suffering and starvation. But you get to kick America's ass. You get to kick capitalism's ass. You kick capitalism's ass, actually, right? You can never do that as in the U.S. military, because you're fighting on the wrong side. But in Decolonators, you can do that. That's where you can actually be the good guy. So in Digistar is a game between Neofeud 1 and 2. Pigeon with Gun is a game where you play a pigeon with a gun fighting gajillionaires. And Woman is a book by Holly, which is about being raised in the right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity and dunking on that kind of culture. And also, you can get that book for free, or you can throw any amount of money that you would like to as a donation when you pick it up. You can also follow at Silverspook Games, at Octodon.social, at Silverspook Games, at Mastodon.social, and you can also follow at Silverspook Guy on Twitter and Silverspook Games on Twitter, and you can also follow. We have Instagram and Facebook, and you can also follow Terminus C. Terminus Cyberstar is a low-poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the vein of games like Deus Ex and System Shock. System Shock 2. It is a game that I am the content director and lead writer of. It is being completed as we speak. And if you would like to learn more about this cyberpunk RPG, you can follow at Terminus C on Twitter and join the Discord if you want to do that. Also, you can follow Holly at the Tech Fairy. Holly is a poet, educator, mod here, married to myself, producer and manager with at Kate Nix TV, which is a show that I was on the show this week, performing a song about billionaires getting destroyed by nature, kind of like what happened to Ocean's Gate guys. So if you want to see that, Holly, that was in the most recent Kate Nix TV show. And also you can follow Holly and Holly writes books, and also as a parent and caregiver here with myself. And yeah, thanks everybody for your support. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks all these really cool people for your ongoing support on the list of our fellow our patrons. Thanks to Big Teal, Victor, everyone else for hanging out in the chat there. Yeah, exactly, Big Teal, Mother Nature getting that job done. So again, Secret Invasion, it's I mean, I didn't really talk about how good or not good the show is. I'm mostly talking about the politics around it. But it's a show that I don't know too much about. There's only one episode that we saw. I'm actually interested to see what they do with this because of how hot the topic is. I'll probably come back to it for another episode at some point. But anyways, you can catch us later on around 9 Pacific time on Twitch if you want to come and hang out. I'm going to be dressed differently. And keep your mirror shades polished. Be excellent to each other. And get those secret brain invasion bugs out of your head from your imperialist invaders. Okay.